I think that's good. Looks a little angled, doesn't it? Yep. Yep. Let's try that.
Okay. Get out of here, coffee.
Welcome to 98% Podcast, where we hear real stories from real people, and I'm here with Seth Cain. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
That's about it.
It's funny because I'm not surprised by that answer at all.
Right. Let's see. Man, I don't know where to start. About me, I'm a solar installer currently, from Osage Beach, Missouri, and I think the full answer to that question is going to be throughout the questions that you have.
Of course, this is just high level.
Yeah. The high level, though, oh man, probably King Awesome or Queen Awesome. I don't know yet.
You don't know. Fair. Okay, so how do you know me?
So, yeah, at full disclosure, I went through, because you sent me like the questions, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I gotta be like a little prepared for it, you
Yeah.
know? And the whole time I'm like looking at all these questions, and I'm like, it's nice because they're straightforward, but there's so many answers and so many levels to it where it's like, that's why I asked after you sent me the list. I'm like, how long do we have? You know, and you're like, forever. Good. But I know you because of the friends we have and the interests that we have, and we worked at Outback Steakhouse together, and all of those are separate but kind of collided at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have a band, Nightmare Nevermore, and we have the same mutual friend, which is Tony, right? And so you found out that I play guitar because through all the people you know, I went to the same guitar teacher, right? So it was, God, who's that one? I forget his name, and I'm really upset about it. He's the kid that played the Les Paul and went to Tom as well. He was a grade under me.
Ooh.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's right there, and I see him, Jamie. Was it like,
Jamie Evans?
Jamie Evans, yeah.
He was a grade below us, actually.
Really?
Yeah, so he was quite a few grades younger than you, I think.
I'm super old. I make 52 look good.
You ain't 52.
I got held back a lot. But, no, like, just, again, all those friends and stuff like that, a small town, like, you know, you have a handful of people that, like, play music.
Oh, yeah.
And if there's, like, a guitar teacher, there's, like, one, you know? And so, yeah, just knowing the same kind of people and doing the same kind of thing, you know, and working together at the same place. And then you're like, you play guitar? And I'm like, yeah. And you're like, you want to jam sometime? And I'm like, all right. And, you know, and then it just kind of like worked out. So kind of all of those things is how I know you, is just all along the way, the right situations happened.
Yeah, for sure. And I wish I knew you before that, because I think about Outback, because I think we worked together at Outback for a while before like I actually knew you. And I was like, man, we could have had so much fun had I known you slightly earlier.
Yeah. And even on top of that, I mean, like, good point, because we went to high school together.
Yeah.
But there was like not like a division, but there was always just this kind of invisible line, even at Outback, because I was like back of house cook, you know, kitchen kind of stuff like that, and you were like busser and front of house and all that sort of stuff like that. So there's always this like weird little line, which, you know, I think is the underlying theme of this podcast in general, is like, you have all these opportunities to ask questions which are free and to get to know somebody better.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's, you know, at the top of this, you said we haven't seen each other in a decade. We're going to leave today knowing more about each other, although having spent a lot of time together, you know?
Yeah.
Just because of questions.
Exactly.
Right? So it's that like little invisible line that we all live in, where it's like, oh, I can't talk to that person, or I can't do these things. Like, why not? You know?
Exactly.
So it's 100% that right there. Like, because I do think about it. I think I talked to your mom more at first, because she was a server at Outback at the time, than I had talked to you, and we had went to high school together. You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's so true.
That's
It's funny that you
that.
said that because I felt the exact same way ever since I've done this podcast. Like some of the people I've had on, like I talk to frequently.
Yep.
Like even my parents, I had them on and I'm talking and I'm like, I'm learning new things already.
Yep.
And you've known me for how long? 35 years?
Yep.
What the heck?
Yep.
So
yeah,
you're so right. Yeah, that's
those
fun.
were some. I watched those, by the way, and those were great. I mean, I guess like as a, I don't know, like not a. I don't. Okay, I don't know the words for it, but something is immediately grabbing about in the thumbnails putting the word schizophrenia. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna watch that. Like, immediately, like, ooh, there's no way that this is not going to be good. You
Exactly.
know?
Yeah. And that's what I'm discovering too. Is as I'm talking to people,
Yep.
like hearing all these really unique stories and stuff. That's like,
Right.
man, everybody's going through so much, and it's just cool to talk about and learn.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, so Outback in school, because you were also in Anthony Appa's grade, right? That was
a grade above that.
You were a grade above Anthony. Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah, because that means you would have been. When did you graduate?
04.
04. Okay, so okay, so so I was 07. So you would have been out when I was a sophomore, I guess,
Yeah.
or senior when I'm a sophomore. Is that right?
Something like that. I don't know.
Something like that.
It's
Either
been
way.
a long time.
So yeah, so that's
My
why we didn't.
20-year high school reunion came and went.
Yeah, did you go?
No, I didn't go. I forgot all about it. I talked to my best friend Nick, and I'm like, dude, wouldn't it be funny if I shaved male pattern baldness into my head, wore a really crappy like Def Leppard band shirt, ripped up my jeans, and each person I talked to, I told them I did a different profession. Just lie to everyone there, like, oh yeah, I kind of run this plumbing outfit, you know, or like, you know, oh yeah, I build skyscrapers, and just look like a white trash Dr. Phil the entire time. And then I find out later that it happened, right? Because I get a text or like a screenshot of like a Facebook post, like, oh yeah, such and such went, and you know, and they mentioned me and Nick, right? And you know, just because of like the circumstance and who was going and stuff like that. And I'm like, so you'll say me, but you won't tell me it's going on because I don't have a Facebook. Because again, I'm that old, so I find out about it afterwards, and I'm like, "Damn it!" Yeah. Which, I mean, to be fair, I was a weird kid, and I was never like, I didn't get school pictures, I didn't go to prom, I didn't any of that sort of stuff like that, because it was just like, that's not my thing, you know?
I get that.
Yeah.
See, I felt kind of like that too. It's funny because I guess they had a 10-year that I didn't know about and a lot of people didn't know about.
Yeah.
And so when it came to 15-year, I was like, I'm going to host a 15-year.
Right.
Just because I don't remember there being a 10-year.
Yeah.
And a lot of other people I talked to were like, no, I didn't hear about that. Like, okay, well, let's do it.
You just have some asshat who plans it and is just like, well, you didn't come to it?
Yeah. You know? so it was funny. So this is what's funny because that's what happened is I guess some people got invited, some people didn't. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to invite everybody.
Yeah.
So I went through the yearbook.
Yeah.
And Facebook stalked everybody.
Yes.
So literally sent a messenger message. And I guess I also found out too that if I'm not friends with that person, I send a messenger message. It doesn't always go into their the right file.
Right.
So some people actually were like, I don't remember getting one. And I'm like, well, maybe check and see. And, you know, and sure enough,
maybe
they'd be like,
cooler next time.
Okay,
nerd.
there we are. Yeah. Yeah, be cooler next time. So yeah, we did one. I got like, I mean, I didn't get a lot of us together, but I got like, they got 10 people or so out of the whole class to come together just to do like a hiking. yeah, we have like a graduate class of 100. So.
Yeah.
But a lot of people responded, were like, no, I can't make it out of town or whatever. But I was like, I just want to get people together. So it was fun too, because the people we got together, it was a nice time. And so hopefully we can do that again. And we decided, Jody and I decided to set up a Facebook thing just for 2007 and be admins. So then everybody is on point for the communication.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So when we do 20-year, it's going to be legit.
Okay.
I mean, that's the plan anyways.
Right.
Yeah. Man, I love it. So I want to talk a little bit about Nightmare Nevermore a little bit.
I think you should.
So you were probably like the most fun person to play with too, by the way. So
Thank you.
What's funny is like we, because to your point, you said we live in a small town, so it's hard enough to find musicians. It's harder to find musicians that play metal music.
Right.
And harder to find people who play, like, I guess on the more technical side, metal music too, right? So I remember, like, I had a couple of people do it once. Like, I remember actually had Jamie Evans, like come out for a little bit.
Right.
And he's just like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. And I was like, I get you. Let's just keep jamming throughout the rest of the day.
Right.
You know? And I remember we had Matt Donnelly. He was probably the person that was, he was solid, but I don't know. I don't remember what happened. I don't think he wanted to play.
I think I remember hearing about that because that kid was a shoe-in because like that was his thing.
It was his thing. He was shredding all the time.
He was metal all the time. Yeah. And I forget what it was. I think it was just kind of like, I guess through just like circumstance, it just didn't work. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, because having known you and played together and all this stuff like that, you had so much patience and so much everything to be like, no, like this is the song. Here's what we're going to go. Like, because you literally walked me through step by step. Like, here's this, here are tabs, here's that. Like, I couldn't have asked for more of like a, here you go. You know what I'm saying? It was training wheels the whole way until I got it. And so, like, you know, you were like, yeah, Matt Donnelly just it didn't seem to work. And it, like, I didn't get it because I heard that, you know, he came on and that he had played. And I'm like, why am I here? You know what I'm saying? Because, like, if Matt Donnelly isn't doing it, like, I'm an idiot. You know what I'm saying? Like, this, like, he's built for this kind of music, you know? But, yeah, I'm not happy that it didn't work out, but like I'm really happy that I was able to play and do it and all that stuff because a lot of time I refer back to that, you know, like my time playing with you and all that stuff because I don't think it's really about being able to play the music per se. I think it's about like if your personalities mesh, right? And then you can play the music sort of thing, right? And it worked out for all of us. Right?
It did, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, I think so too. I mean, we had such a good time, and it was fun because bringing you on, I remember like you picked up really quickly too. Like you picked up real quick, and it's funny because I don't think metal was technically your genre, anyways. At that time, was it? Yeah, but yeah, you picked it up quick, and we just all meshed. I remember how good we got at one point. I remember me, you, and John all playing. I think we were playing "Starting Over," and I don't know if you even remember that song, but it's pretty technical. I remember us playing downstairs and Tony was off doing something else and we're playing together like in time solid to where just halfway through the song Tony comes down and just like hops on the drums.
I remember that. Yeah, he's just like he just shows up like out of left field where it's like yes
because that's where we were at like we were dialed and it was funny too because I think we meshed so well together and I mean, I like to think that all of us are pretty intelligent people too. Like we remember things pretty well. So like it was just like one of those things. Like it'd be like, oh, we got a show. Okay, let's just practice the day before.
Yeah,
you know, we weren't practicing all the time. We knew the stuff, and like we trusted enough that like you'd work on it, I'd work on it, Tony'd work kind of on our own, and we'd come together. We'd be good. And dude, it was so much fun. And the whole dressing up thing was nice. I like dressing up.
Yeah.
Oh, you outclassed me though. You had the vest and everything.
Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah, there was a time or two. I don't know if I outclassed you. I just had like clothes.
You had extra clothes. I still had like Walmart clothes.
Dude, you had that flame tie where you're like, we're gonna dress up, and then I show up and I look over and you've got like the short sleeve button down and the flame tie, and I'm like, he's killing it. I'm so hot. I've got so much clothes on.
Yeah, I was trying to think strategically, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, because we want to do that. I thought it would be fun. Like, how about we dress up so when people go to these shows, they don't know what we're going to play.
Right.
And if you recall, I remember playing at, we played at the YMCA in Branson, and you remember we had like an old couple that came and sat down at the beginning? I don't know if you remember, but they sat down, and I was like, they don't know what we're about to play.
We're about to screw you guys up.
Because I intentionally put like on the flyers and stuff, I set out like your local rock bands.
Yeah.
Like,
smooth jazz.
Exactly.
Come on in.
So, and it was funny because I think we probably played Here It Comes or some song that we used to start with that one, but we played a song right when we finished it. Like we look out and they're gone, and I'm like,
yep,
nail it. They're gone. Yeah, they had no idea what they were going to do.
I think the guitars would definitely give it away, where they're like, "What are you planning on doing with that?"
Yeah,
it's got a lot of points. It's like a geometry question.
Exactly.
Getting out of here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But like to that though, again with like the invisible barriers. There's still an underlying theme with finding the right type of person, right?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't about like, do I play metal music? It's the idea that like I have a guitar and I play guitar, right? Like you said, like practicing and all that sort of stuff like that. It's will you show up and do the thing, right?
Yeah.
And there are parallels that cross between everything that you do. I mean, from like working out
Yeah.
to talking to people to playing music and all that stuff like that.
Yep.
You know, like again, listening to, because I ran through and I watched some of your podcasts before showing up, and you had talked about how your mom was kind of like, well, you don't really like play guitar. And I immediately associated with that feeling because if I might, right, in your head, you're like, fuck you, I'm going to do it, man. Like, not that you would to your mom. I'm not saying that. But I remember starting guitar at 16 and people being like, yeah, but like you only like play, you know, like you don't really know what you're doing, you know? And you're like, kiss my ass. Like, I'm going to show you, you know? And there's, again, there's nothing at all sexy about playing guitar to that caliber, right? Because you were talking about like, you know, you don't know anybody that plays metal and it's not your thing, and you're trying to find that one niche person.
Exactly.
What you're trying to find is the person that is going to take that on.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I remember, again, with playing guitar and going to it, setting a metronome, having headphones in. I'm off work at like midnight, so I'm just like playing guitar and like running scales in my room. And then you hear about like guys like John Mayer or whatever else like that, where it's like, you know, you make guitar look like sexy. You know what I'm saying? Like ladies are like, yeah, but it's like, if you saw behind the scenes how much you have to sit there with just headphones in.
Yeah.
Until you go insane. You know, you do. Damn it. Do. It's not cool. It's not sexy. It's not anything like that. And then you were like, hey, let's play together, you know? And I hadn't really played live at all at that point. And I'm listening to all these like just super detuned heavy triplets. And it was literally my left hand's just down and I've palm muted and it's da 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 da, and it's just that for hours. You know? Because I'm like, you're doing it, and that's what you grew up on, sort of thing, like how you played it.
Exactly, yeah.
And it was blistering. You're like, you're like that, right? You've got these like super fast patterns, and I'm like, oh, damn it. You know? But it's answering the call of like, no, I'm going to get this. You know? Like, I want to do it. These guys, like, you're showing me all this stuff and putting like a lot of stock into it. I really like playing, hanging out, doing all that stuff. I'm going to nail it. You know? Especially since you're like, yeah, and then we'll get some shows. And I'm like, all right, cool. Oh no. You know, like, I'm going to play in front of people, you know. But yeah, no, that's, I go back to those thoughts a lot because I never really advertised, and I'm not the kind of guy that it's like, oh yeah, that dude plays guitar. Back in the day, whenever I had 10 years worth of long hair, people knew that there was something, but not that it was like that specifically, you know, because I'm not like, you know, the best guitar player ever. Yeah. Whom I'm close to, they know that I play guitar because they would come over, or they would hear, whatever else like that, or I'd have guitars all over the place. But even now, I'm not like, you know, yeah, I play guitar, you know. It's just something that I happen to do. So, you know, I just, yeah, I think back to the time of playing and doing that. And when it comes up, or whenever I get to talking about music with like friends or people or whatever else like that, it's like, thinking about playing live to me is the closest I will ever come to doing drugs, right? Because I don't and I won't, but I think about it, and I think about the feeling of being up on stage and doing all that stuff, and I'm like, that's probably what heroin feels like, you know? Like it's amazing, you know?
Yeah,
so
it is, and that's what I always admired about you too. I was telling my parents about that. Is like you were like the most reliable person too, like fun personality. Like we would just hang out and have fun and goof off, but like. Yeah, you always came prepared, and nothing that I think we ever did, you were ever like, nah, man. You were like, you know what I mean? Like, nah, I can't do that.
That's cool, but no.
No. You're literally like, okay, I can do it. And I was like, sweet, okay, cool, let's do it.
Yeah.
And like, not only did you do it, but like you would, I mean, you know, we'd come in, you know, whenever we'd practice, you know, week, month down the road, like, yeah, you'd have it nailed. And then not only that, there were times where I'm like, you know what might sound good here is a solo. Okay, got it.
Yep.
And then you come with solo that I'm like, that's very tasteful.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Right.
You know, and I would have never guessed too that like, I mean, you might have told me back in the day, but I forgot about that you didn't perform because like our live presence and your live presence like was so good. Like we'd go to shows and like if I go back and watch some of those YouTube videos of us just being ridiculous, like going up to each other and then just cracking up every time we do a squeal unintentional. Like that was my favorite moments.
Those were my hardest ones. You're talking about not being prepared. you have the pinched harmonic down, right? Or not the pinched harmonic, but just regular like the squealies and all that other kind of stuff like that. I worked on that so much. Because you would think that out of everything I would have it down, but that was one of the ones that I had the hardest time with, was nailing those, because you have a microsecond to nail it.
Yep.
You know, and a lot of times I'd be playing along and it would be during practice and I would half the time get it, right? And then live like boop. You know, like, damn it.
and for those out there, like, so what we're talking about, like the squeals is like, so we make our guitars basically like a wee sound, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. I don't know what it was, but I remember us practicing, and we would practice because we knew the songs already well enough, so we would just see how well we could fit one in randomly.
Yeah.
we had a few songs where I think we did like 10 back to back, and we're just laughing, and you know, Tony's just playing and John's just doing his thing, and we're just like, wee, and we're just like, ah.
Because again, it's hilarious because there's microseconds to be able to fit it in such a tight metal song. Everything's accounted for and syncopated. Yeah. So you'd be like, no. That's
why it'd be so funny, because then we'd take turns and like see how fast can we fit it into a random spot. Yeah.
Because you're playing like up here, but the best one is like down here.
Oh,
so
Just go, grab the third fret. Whoop.
Yep. Yeah.
There we go.
Nailed it. Those were it was the best time.
So good.
But like, I think, again, I got lucky in the sense of, you know, I was introduced to playing live very slowly, because I want to say one of the first shows we ever did was like a church parking lot. And I still had like my little like crate combo amp, just this small thing. Pardon me. So it started off very, I don't want to say unimpressive, but it started off at the right pace where it was slow and it just kind of built, you know?
Yeah.
And so by the time that we were playing either, you know, like, I think the Horny Toad was like probably the biggest like venue per se, or Nathan P. Murphy's. By that time it was, you know, we've already played live, and we've already got the songs down and all that kind of stuff. And my process was, you know, the hardest part was coming out and learning the songs and learning the music and doing like that first 0 to 1, I'm showing up and I'm going to learn it kind of thing. And then after that, it was getting the song smooth. And then after that, it was memorizing all that sort of stuff. And then, come time for us to be playing like we did, it was, I've got homework to do, right? So I would work, I would do this, and then I would work on the songs, right? And then the closer it would get, you know, I would work on more of the songs, kind of get it down to where I'm having a hard time with this piece right here, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I hate to say homework because it seems like, you know, boring. It's not, you know, you drill all this sort of stuff like that. And then like probably about a week out, I would say, you know, you would have like a set list of what we would do. I would run through the set list, right? I would play it, like the whole thing. And it's just me by myself kind of thing, right? So, I mean, it's not that I would take it serious per se, you know, but it was important to me, you know. I was like, I'm still going to be able to do this. You're killing me right now. You can't see this, but there's like a duck that's been messing around back here, and he's got a mohawk and a red face. And I'm just wanting him to walk into frame so bad.
He's like extremely close too. That's what's so funny.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever does this.
So we're like talking and trying to have this like podcast, and there's this guy just like, do you want some coffee? Where are you going? All right, whatever. More coffee for me, nerd. Okay, sorry.
Oh. Oh, dude, I hope that didn't pick up on mic. That was so bad.
And then the duck just craps and walks off. The best part is that's for us. Like, all of that happened off screen. I'm just talking to something over here.
But the funny thing is, I think I'm going to keep it on here just so people know that this all just took place while we're doing this podcast.
Hopefully so. God, yes.
Oh, gosh. That's what he thought about you offering coffee.
Yeah. Like,
you want some coffee?
I've already had plenty.
Okay.
A
a few things too is like, Yeah, back to your point about like people don't realize the work that goes into it. See,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're talking about all the work you put into, and I think about like the amount of times I was just in my garage,
Mm-hmm.
just with the guitar playing and me just singing and playing over and over.
Yeah.
Because the thing is too, a lot of people don't realize this, but when I write the songs, I don't write them and play them at the same time. Like I write the music first typically,
Yeah.
and then I write the vocals.
Yeah.
And then I try to figure out how to play the song
Yeah.
while singing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because some of that stuff you're like, oh, okay, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
Because you're like, okay, so I'm singing straightforward, but now I'm playing something a little weird with the hand. So there he was.
That guy. Bye, Steve.
But yeah, so I remember just being there, and that was my hardest time, was just trying to figure out all that stuff. And then figuring out, like, after we'd play too, is like what parts we wanted to take on. Because there were some times where it's like a chorus when I'm really doing melodic singing, where I really want to like focus on the vocals and stuff, where I'd be like, okay, I'm going to play the rhythm parts.
Mm-hmm.
You play the lead on that part because it just made sense, right? Yeah. But yeah, it was so cool to kind of to dial that in and just. But yeah, to your point, like we practiced all the time, like just trying to make sure that we nailed it. Because I wanted to make sure that when we show up, we had fun, we gave a good performance, and then if we're well practiced, then we can just have fun too. Because the last thing you want to do, because I think we've played with bands like that where you could tell like they're playing and they're just very like oh yeah, they're not having fun.
They're loose.
They're just really trying to make sure that they're dialed in. But we did that, and then oh dude, still think about John. So I'm gonna have him on the podcast sometime too.
I hope you do.
So we will.
Yeah,
we will. But dude, his stage presence was the best. Dude, I almost want to talk about some John stories.
I think you should.
We should. Okay. Yeah. Do you remember some of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so two good ones that I remember. One, he was always hurting someone too, unintentionally.
Oh yeah.
So if you know, so you guys will meet John here soon. So he's a very reserved to himself.
He's so soft spoken.
He is, yeah, very soft spoken. Yeah. But like when we play, like it was a totally different person. Like he had his hair. Remember, his hair was all wild.
Yeah.
He'd be like just really moving off. Like, and dude, there were times where I don't even know how he would move his body and play, but like sometimes he'd move his body like in ways that I'm like, how do you play on time and move your body? I'm impressed. Like I just had no idea.
Yeah.
But you never knew what you were going to get, and that was the best part. It's like
I'm always super slept on because like he shows up like hi, and then like we would play and stuff like that. And I remember there were times where you would be front and center and singing, and you couldn't go anywhere. Yeah. Right. And it got to where eventually, like I bought an extra long cord, and John was wireless, right? So we'd look at each other and be like, and he'd be like, yeah, and we would hop off stage and just keep playing and go into the crowd. Right? I'm like, I love this dude. Because you could push him to the ends of the earth and he'd be like, all right. And you would never assume that about that guy.
Oh, yeah. So good. Yeah, there's that. There was he headbutted a fan once. I remember that. Like so that was one of our shows at the I can't remember if you were with us at that time.
I don't think I was.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were playing one of our shows. We were a 3-piece for a while, but
I think that's whenever John was like peak crazy.
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
He was intense.
He was. I just remember one time, like we were playing. This might have been like one of our first couple shows, and he's just going ham, and we're in the middle of the thing going nuts, and he just all of a sudden like there's someone behind him, and he didn't know, and he just goes boom, just nails this guy right in the nose, and then just keeps on playing. And you're like, whoa, what just happened? So there was that. There was a time where he nudged me, where I'm in the middle of playing, and we're almost finished, and I remember the exact song we were playing, "Alone in His Shadow." Yeah. And I'm just like. And I'm playing around, we're getting close, and I'm singing, and all of a sudden he, like, runs up and he just nudges me real hard, and my pick goes flying, and it's dark, and I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to finish, and grab the pick or whatever, and it was like, okay, cool. And then, so one time, which he also taught himself how to do the bass throws, too. I remember that. He did that a couple times. I thought he did, didn't he?
I think you had mentioned it, and you guys had always talked about it, but I had never seen it because at that time it was when you guys were playing at. Oh my God! It's whenever you guys were playing at the Rock House a lot. I think he would do it then, is what you guys had told me, and then by that time, you and Tony were always like, "Dude, do it," and he was always just kind of like. Because at that time, I think he had like a different bass. Like he had nicer stuff, so he's like, no.
Because he got locking in things just for that purpose. That was funny. But he, one of my favorites is one of the last shows we played at a Harley Davidson. That was so hot. Yeah,
not sexual, like
no.
very hot in temperature.
It was hot.
Ladies.
Exactly. We were playing though. It was funny because we're playing these songs, and that was the time where we also just threw in a song randomly because we played with this band we played with a long time ago.
Yeah.
And they like, dude, we love the song Nightmare. Like, dude, you guys want to play Nightmare? And that's what I love so much about us is that we all like had all these things filed. Like, yeah, we can play that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
So we played it just for them. But then, yeah, we were sitting there playing the song, and it gets ready to go to the heavy part. And John just takes off running and jumps over the monitor in front and whacks some guy in the face with the head of his bass. and then the best part is he's just out in the crowd going crazy, going ham, like nothing happened. And then he comes back to the mic when we're done, and he's like, sorry for whoever I hit with the bass, but you shouldn't have been standing there. And that was his response. It was like the worst apology ever, and I loved it because the guy's just
so you're a moron.
It was so good.
Yeah.
But oh gosh, yeah, we had some fun stories though. Oh, one time he decided to. So, you were playing this when we used to take the PAs everywhere too, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, so we took the PAs. We actually had Joe Batty doing sound for us for a while too.
I wasn't part of that. No.
Okay, so that was right before you, I think.
Yeah.
But you might have spoken this when we were taking PAs away. But yeah, for a while there, like John had these PAs that he got from this church. They gave them away.
Yeah.
And we're just like, premium sound. Let's just do our own sound because the sound at that place was iffy, anyways. And Joe Batty came with us to a few shows and did mixes for us, so it sounded good.
Right.
But so one of the shows, he climbs up. I thought he climbed up on it. It was either that or the drum rides or whatever. He climbed up on something, and it comes to the song, and he just jumps off and he lands.
Yeah.
And then what happens is this cordless pack falls down on the ground.
Yeah.
And it's just laying there. And instead of doing anything about it, he just looks at me and he just points. Like, what do you want me to do about it? I'm playing guitar and singing, and he's just standing there. So instead of like just taking a break for a second, picking it up, putting it on, he decides to just sit on the ground Indian style or crisscross applesauce. I guess we want to be politically correct, and he starts just playing bass. So he finishes the song, this heavy song, just like sitting on the ground playing the bass.
The most metal thing ever.
It was so
hey, everybody.
But dude, I love playing with him, man. I think we just had a good group of guys, and I miss it sometimes. So I always think about like, what if we were to do some reunion shows? What if we were to get back together and just play some gigs? Because you're right. I mean, it wasn't the skills of the players necessarily. It was like the camaraderie. Right? It was like how we interacted together and the willingness to like just get stuff done.
Right.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
But, man, good times.
Yeah. It was.
Okay.
I mean, like, again, whenever I think back to all of that and I'm talking about music to somebody, you know, because everybody has like their favorite bands or performances or whatever else like that. You know, it's times whenever we had played together where I'm like, you know, somebody would be like, oh, well, they don't play well live. And I'm like, you got to understand, like, your guitar is like an extra 15 pounds. You know, you're dealing with different humidity. Your hands are sticking to stuff like that. Or the mic, you know, the sound guy's this or that or whatever. It's like, try it sometime. Is my biggest thing with people where it's like, even if you suck, you got up there and you did it, you know, because it's easy for all of us, especially now with just access to information, social media, things like that, and everything's, you know, like videotaped or whatever. It's easy to say like, you know, you can't do it or this or that or whatever else like that, but like not a lot of people I feel like get out and try, you know?
No, they don't. Yeah.
So like go and suck and put yourself in a really awkward position where, you know, at least you've done it, you know?
Exactly. It's too easy to judge people too. Yep. I think too many people like to say like, oh, you know, like they're not very good. And it's like, well, have you tried it?
Yeah.
No. Maybe you should.
Right. Exactly. Because at that point, after you have, you're like, you're never like, you know, they're terrible. It's like, it's not my thing. You know, and here's why. Yeah. Like when I did it, it was this. I understand why they do it, you know, because it's different perspective, you know. Because the thing I think I hate the most about whenever I would play, there were a handful of times where there were musicians that were just super full of themselves. And again, I mean, it's not like we did anything huge. We're in the middle of Missouri. We're kids. It was a fun time, you know. We're not like opening for Mastodon or anything like that, you know. So it was weird to me to see there was one specific guitarist that was just way into himself and was like really crabby to everybody else. And it was like, you get we're just playing this little tiny show, you know, like what are you doing, you know? So I don't know. I guess it was a different time too, because there wasn't so much, access to everything.
Yeah.
You putting stuff up on YouTube at the time was kind of a big deal because you had to go.
Yeah.
There wasn't just cameras all the time forever with everything. It
Yeah.
was, I'm going out of my way to set this up, to do this, to then do that, you know? So I don't know. But it was just always awkward to me. And maybe that's, I guess one of my hangups, because again, it's just, I'm going to show up and do a thing, not like, haha, even though I do have that like air about myself where it's like, I'm awesome, it's not like, hey, everybody, I'm awesome. It's just like, I'm going to go and have a good time and be goofy kind of thing. So,
yeah. I love that too. It's funny. Were you, were you playing with us at any of the VFW shows?
No. I think, church parking lot, which was like the first one. Well, you talked about the Harley Davidson one. I remember that one because the only time that we had all collectively said no to a thing, which was dressing up whenever we did the Harley Davidson show, because it was outside in a pavilion and it was at least 98 degrees in the shade.
Yeah.
And Tony was just like, I'm not doing that. Like, I can't. I will pass out. Like, so he was like shorts and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I think I put on dress pants and that was it. I'm like, dude, Ricky, I can't. I'm so sorry, man. Like, I'm already, everything is sticking to me already. And then we just had like a great show after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny. So the VFW one, why I brought that up, because I don't know why. It reminded me of when you're talking about musicians being full of themselves. But so this band shows up and we're playing with them. And what it is, they show up to the thing and just randomly is like, hey, does anybody have a bass and an amp I can borrow? Like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
She goes like, yeah, I guess I forgot my stuff. And John was obviously nice enough because he's the nicest guy. And was like,
right.
You can borrow my stuff. And say, okay. So he helped them set it up and everything. But I was just like, that was interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't show up to a
show up. Guess I didn't wear pants today.
But they were,
Whoops.
But they were a heavy band, and they kind of felt full of themselves too. But it was funny that they were full of themselves, but at the same time they forgot their stuff.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
how does that work?
How does that work?
I remember whenever we played, I think it was Nathan P. Murphy's, and the band New York showed up.
New York.
Yeah. And like the drummer, which it's not his fault or anything, he was playing, and I guess he had his snare too high or had been playing it for a while. But anyway, the head of his snare split, so they couldn't play, and he's just like, does anybody have anything? And I see Tony just be like, I'm not doing that. You know what I'm saying? And like the dude just kept asking, and like the show was stopped in its track, and like Tony was finally like, yeah. So he plays it and stuff like that. So already it was kind of just like, there was this feeling of this big to do, like, hey man, we're gonna do it and all this other sort of stuff. And then, snare breaks, which is whatever, stuff happens. And then we play the show, and it was a boatload of fun. And then afterwards, very awkwardly, as we're packing up, like the main dude was just like, "Yay, you want to hit us with some scratch? I mean, we came out, like, you want to like pay us, And it was just super awkward, because he was just like, maybe at least like, enough money to like get gas or something like that. And it's almost as if we all like kind of vaguely turned into mannequins at that point, where it's just so awkward that we were all like, what is going on? And you took the heat of it, and you were just like, yeah, okay, because the feeling that I got was none of it was discussed at all. And he just like sprung it on you, and you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah, because I can't even remember. See, I don't even remember that situation. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
But because I'm pretty sure it's been so long, but I'm pretty sure we had it scheduled where it was like we were going to give the band some money, but like it was a certain amount, right? So
right.
We gave him, and I think to your point, what was he just asking for more? Is that what happened or something?
I think so.
I can't remember.
Because again, you had all that stuff kind of set up and taken care of and talked about, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of like the very unsexy things about like playing,
Yeah.
is like the business portion of it. But it was very, very awkward and forced and just, I think awkward is the best way to put that, because the dude came up and I was getting my stuff together, and then I see him approach, and in my head I'm like, is he getting ready to say like good job? Because I get the feeling that like this isn't his bag. Like would be like hey, you guys did really good. And again, I don't know the guy, I don't know anything, but like again, like just those little micro judgments. I'm like, what's getting ready to happen? Because you could just feel it in the air, and goes, hey, can you hit us with some extra scratch? And I'm like, yep, there it is.
Yeah, because I think if I believe what was it? Was that the drummer? Is that what you said?
I don't know if it was the drummer. I think it might have been the singer or something. I don't remember.
Oh, you don't remember?
It's been way
so I can't remember because like everything was discussed beforehand, so I couldn't remember if that was like someone else from the group asking. I don't remember, but
yeah,
I don't doubt it.
You handled it like super well, but even with me looking, it kind of hit you like a brick because at first you're doing your thing and it's just coming off the high of like we played a show and it was a great time and all this other sort of stuff, and then you're like and you're just feeling good, packing your stuff up, and then hey, and you're like. And then you could just almost like you still held your posture, but just looking at you, it almost seemed like everything sunk. Like right after he had asked, you're like, "Great, now I have to deal with this."
Like, oh, okay,
cool,
dude. Way to bring down the high.
Yeah.
That was funny. I also think I feel like we also need to shout out Timmy in this moment too. Remember Tim? Or he did lights with us at that show too.
Yes,
because he was so. That's my cousin, but dude, But yeah, I feel like. You want to talk about like also like the amount of work he put in to like what we did was literally like he was playing an instrument. It was the wildest thing. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, so we wanted to have like a light presence. So we bought these construction lights, we bought some power strips,
right? And
basically like it was the most primitive system you could think of for a light show. Right?
It was awesome.
It was awesome. It was cool. So we'd set them up, and I was just like one day was like because he enjoyed listening to us and he wanted something to do, and I was like, dude, do you just want to like do lights for us because we could totally use that? And he's like, yes, I would love to. Okay, cool. And not only did he do lights, like he literally like created the system where he had all these power strips next to each other. He had exactly where the lights would go. He would practice at home, like the songs and where the hits would be and what we want to do. Yeah. And he taught himself how to turn off and turn on.
Yeah, the syncopation with
all these power strips to make them light up and do everything he wanted. And it was the craziest thing. Like, but he used to do that. I remember him being like during the practicing process, like, yeah, I got blisters, but I'm gonna be good. And he just had like stuff worn down from just flipping stuff. But dude, same thing. Like, I think he blended well in that space too of us just like, like. He was willing to like put in the work and like he exceeded my expectations. I just like I just want you to turn him on and off sometimes. Like
just go over there, jiggle the handle, see you later.
On, off.
Yep.
But dude, he had it dialed and that was crazy. So yeah, that was because what made me think of that is I was thinking about the picture we took at the Nathan P. Murphy. So I was like, oh yeah, he was in that picture. Like I forgot he did quite a few gigs with us in that space. But yeah, those are good times. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad we got this. I'm glad we talked about this. We haven't even gotten to the other questions yet.
Perfect.
But dude, this is good. So it was good times. But yeah, so let's start. So obviously I sent you the questions.
Yep.
But yeah, we just want to have the audience just connect with you more, right? So let's start off with the basic from the beginning, right? So what was growing up like for you?
Yeah, now comes the fun part. This is why I asked. You're right. I am glad that I asked previously how long we could take because it's going to be forever. Growing up for me, so I have this thing where I don't know something is not normal until somebody points it out.
Yep.
Like I'm here and I'm existing and it's like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then somebody's like, hey, that's messed up. And I'm like, what? Oh, I guess it is, right? So growing up for me was I thought normal until I discovered what normal was, and it's by no fault of anybody's. So growing up for me was I started off in Eldon until my parents got divorced, and then I spent the rest basically from like 5 years old on, like all my formative years were at the lake, were at Osage Beach, right? My sister had, and stick with me here, cerebral palsy and lissencephaly. So cerebral palsy is just like, normal malformation here and there or whatever, but lissencephaly is the big one, and it's where your brain is smooth, right? And I know that there are a lot of like hilarious jokes about smooth brain out there, right, on the internet. Have you not heard of them?
I know nothing about smooth brain.
They're hilarious because like usually in like the gaming community or somebody does something like really stupid, we're like, smooth brain, and it's extra hilarious to me, because it's like that's actually a thing, haha, But anyway, it's where there are no like wrinkles or anything. The brain basically develops just the surface value, right?
Okay.
Because if you think about the brain, it can't grow out, right? Your skull and your structure grows, right?
Yep.
But in order for it to grow, it's, you've got surface area. Let me see the thing here. But whenever it grows, that's why it's wrinkled. It will cave in. That way it gives itself more surface area, right? Because now instead of just this, you've got that folds in on itself. Yep. So you've got more space for neurons, and that's just how it develops, yep. Right? So hers wasn't that. So she only had what, she was given, Yeah. So it was, she never walked. It was diapers. It was grand mal seizures. We had to feed her. We had basically a giant infant, right? So she was dependent for life. And my parents split when I was about 5 or 6. And then after that, it was growing up at the lake. And again, I didn't know that it wasn't how it was supposed to be up until like much later on, because it was just, normal. Like my sister has went to the bathroom and now I'm changing a diaper or I'm feeding her or whatever else like that. It was just, that's what you do, know? Yeah. And then later on, somebody's like, man, you didn't have much of a childhood. And I'm like, I mean, I guess I didn't, because there was never any like, I'm just going to go and do this, which, for the most part, yeah, I did have that, right? But it was always like heavily with like, hey, we're at work, you've got to watch your sister or whatever else like that. Or like summertime, it was just, you're there and it was just, her and I and all that. And speaking to all of that, there is, I think this one will come up again. Do you know what a grand mal seizure is?
I've heard of it, don't know specifics.
Okay, so there are different levels of seizure, right? There's some people that'll just sit here and talk and like, and they're having a seizure, like something happened and they're just gone, or like an arm will do like a thing or whatever. Grand mal is fully involved.
Got it, yep.
So she would scream and tense up and like start doing a thing, and it was terrifying every time, right?
Yeah.
So that was what life was like growing up for me, was caring for her and going through those motions and living what I thought was a normal life, when come to find out it wasn't. And not because of my sister. It's the knock-on effects after that. Because I was told later on that, whenever you have a dependent child, generally speaking, in the hospital or when you find out, doctors or whomever is helping you plan for this, for your life, they had mentioned to my parents, like, hey, there's a statistical likelihood that you guys, this will break you. You will get a divorce because of this, right? Because it's so hard. Yeah. Because you've got one child she's not going to get up and run off, but it's like you're having like 10 kids. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just because never get out of diapers, never get out of like just dependent care. There always has to be somebody there. And, that rocks a person. And my mom and my stepdad, because they were going through the same thing. I happened to be a kid, right? But they were still. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
35.
Do you still feel like you got a lot of kid in there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You never really grow up out of that,
Agreed.
So I know that they're feeling that too, and I know there's a portion of it that, to speak freely and to seem kind of calloused, you feel a little robbed, Yeah. Because you're there, and that's and you'll do what it takes, and we did, and all that other kind of stuff like that. But it eventually wore them down too, where, they would start hitting the bars every night and stuff like that. And they developed a really, really bad drinking problem, right? Both of them separately and together, right?
Yeah.
It was like napalm meets like, match kind of thing. Like those two were meant to be, and they had such great personalities that they just exploded. They're like, yeah, I want to party and do all this crazy, awesome, fun stuff. So when it was good, it was good. But when it was bad, oh my God, it was dumpster fire. Oh my gosh. It was so bad. So I spent a lot of my older years growing up in a alcoholic household with a dependent sister. And it was just like, what is going on here? So like, I knew in that aspect that it wasn't normal, but there was no one that was going to be like, hey, this is what's going on, and it's not your fault, and there's this and there's that. Because I like, as time went on, there is always that time when you're going to leave home, right? Yep. So for me to grow up and realize I'm going to leave was laden with guilt, because it's like, I'm going to leave my sister, and I'm like a primary care provider for this human person and I'm just going to be like, I'm going to go start my life, and I'm like kind of looking at my parents like, don't screw it up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like there was a lot on the line, and I didn't know, again, I keep saying this, I didn't know that it wasn't normal until, my best friend Matt and I started hanging out in like junior high, and we were pretty inseparable. And he had a family with, I think there were like 6 brothers and sisters, because his parents had gotten divorced. The other parent had 2 kids and stuff like that. So there's 4 on his side, 2 on the step side. And so I just got to watch this normal family interact and fight and be just tough, And even they're like, "You think we're normal?" And I'm like, "I'll trade you." Come on into my side. And Matt definitely, like all of my very, very close friends that I grew up with, got to see that, And so, again, to me, it was just like, that's it since day one, because my sister was older than me. Since day one, that was normal life to me, And then over time, I got to see, like, wait a minute, this isn't normal. Yeah, you guys don't do this too, So that's kind of what growing up was like for me, was that. And I wouldn't trade it, because with everything from caring for my sister to even being quite literally a redheaded stepchild, a lot of people were like hands off. You know what I'm saying? Because what do you do with that? And heavy kudos to my stepdad, because he came into a situation where there was this excitable little redheaded idiot and a dependent child, and he's just like, okay, let's go, And like I said, I told everybody the ending, which it kind of ended in like a bit of a flaming disaster, but it's built on little moments between the start and the finish that you can't quite capture, right? Because like we built a house together, and we, there are fond memories, and we are a family and all that stuff. And I remember the time specifically when it dawned on me that my stepdad had shown me more things in life than my dad did, right? I was sitting there just talking with friends and blah, 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 and just it came out of my mouth, and I'm like, oh. And it's like I got hit with a brick, like right in that moment where I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that about myself, So there's a lot to it. And again, I wouldn't trade it. I wish things were done differently. But the reason I wouldn't trade it is it set me up for right now, where it's like, okay, I know a lot of how not to do it, but I know a lot of how I'm going to do it, right? And so, again, to bring it back to my sister about how I could seem callous when I talk about it, it's very realistic to me to have that conversation with people. Like, whenever anyone out there, if you're getting ready to have a kid, they will give you the option to have a harmony test, right? And what that is doctors will check for any, defects, possible things here and there. Totally get it done. And I'm not suggesting somebody does something or doesn't do something. Being prepared for that frame of life is definitely required, right? So for me, if I had to do it again, I know what it takes to take care of somebody who's dependent for life. Be ready for it, Have those difficult conversations of, we might not make it, because it's realistic. I'm go into everything with rose-colored glasses and be the best version of what you can be. But I'll be damned if you do not have to be prepared for something like that, because it's a lot, I mean, you've got, I don't know if I can say this.
Whatever you want. Yeah.
You've got a kid, and you know what it's like to have a baby, where it's like so frustrating at times. Like, you're up, it's 3, I want to sleep. You just crapped yourself, didn't you? The most heavily inconvenienced times at times can turn into something where it's like, man, I wouldn't trade this for anything, and now those moments are gone. And the burden is I get to reflect on what I did or didn't do in my times of being frustrated, but it's just this beautiful moment. And so life was with somebody who's dependent was like that, just ramped up to 11, so knowing what you're getting into and having the discussion of this is going to be hard, I think is fair, And my sister's name was Allison. Allison shaped who I am, right? Before I got out into the world. Because again, I didn't have any other option. You could choose to lift weights, or you can choose to play guitar. But when you've got somebody that you have to keep alive, you have to do that.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not like, didn't feed him. It's not like a, you know, like a fish. You know? So like my patience was carved into me, and my understanding and my outlook on life was given to me because of my circumstance. And I wouldn't trade it, because I don't think that I would be the same person, you know? So that's what growing up was like for me.
Dude, I love that perspective. So I feel the same way. Like when people ask about regrets or would you change anything or anything like that, I always come back to that, is think like, well, if I did change anything, then I would be different than probably who I am now.
Right.
And would I want that? It could be better. It could be worse. Right. We'll never know.
Right.
And yeah, that's crazy. So what do you think, going through that as a child, what do you think that did for you? Because the reason why I say that is because, like, I didn't know a lot of this information, right, until today, right? We talked about that this would probably happen, right?
Yep.
But, I mean, as far as the people I've met, like, I feel like you probably are probably one of the most, like, authentic, and probably, I'd say, I don't know if empathetic is the right word, empathy, but like I feel
psychopath is what you're looking for.
But I'd say, like, but the thing is like I feel very connected when we chat, right? Like I feel like very real and very authentic. It feels really good, and I feel like you just have this maybe compassion or stuff for people that maybe you wouldn't have had otherwise. So I just wondered, so what do you feel like that did for you?
A lot. I think that, because I struggle with this a lot, and like struggle's a loose term here. I think you're destined to be a certain person out of the box, right? Square one, if you were to start all over, I think there's certain parts of your personality that's who you're going to be no matter what, right? Like genetics is like, here you go, this is Ricky, do with it what you will, right? And then the rest is shaped by, nurture, right?
Yeah.
Over the nature part. So I do wonder about that a lot. Like, what would it have been like if I grew up with my father being there all the time, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want that or not, you know? And I've only got this perspective because I truly don't know, you know? So after all that, just wondering, like, what would life have been like if I didn't have my sister? I think I would have been a lot more full of myself, you know? I think it would have taken me a lot longer to get to where I'm at now. It would have happened because life's coming at you no matter what. But it would have been like, you know, all right, well, whenever people say, well, life's not fair, it's like, yeah, really? You know, like, where are you coming from? Because I don't know if you can grasp how not fair life can truly be, you know? But again, it just seems like whenever I hear people say that, it can be like a gimme, you know? It's like, you're saying that on the uphill side of it. You're saying that on the sense of, like, you know, well, I'm your boss and life's not fair, you're fired, where it's like, yeah, but you're still going to go home with a paycheck and you're still going to be able to, like, boss people around and stuff like that. Like, where are people coming from whenever they say that kind of stuff? But to actually answer your question, there was a lot behind the scenes that it made me into. Again, my patience was very much so carved into me because, you know, again, you have to feed her, you have to make sure she's not doing these things, you have to change her diaper, all that other sort of stuff like that, where you are forced into that, you know. And while the patience was the biggest one, I can tell you now, as a father, I have lost so much patience. I'm not going to sit here and try to fool you whatsoever, because my kids will do stuff and I'm like, quit! You know? And I look back to that and I'm like, man, I used to be more like, you know, straightforward. But again, their situation's different because they can, like, you know, mouth off and run away. So a bit of a difference there. But the biggest thing for me, which I think is kind of awkward from the outside looking in, is the hate and anger that I got, which I think is like a really weird and unexpected answer, but that's the thing I remember, I think, probably the most, is just being so exceptionally angry because, you know, when you're sitting there with somebody who is literally like just a delicate child, and they're having a grand mal seizure and they're screaming and you don't know if they're in pain or not, but man, that sure looks like a not fun time.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do. Period. You're just going to have to sit there and make sure they don't bite their own teeth out or something like that as they're literally screaming. And that's it. You know, if it goes past a certain time frame, you call an ambulance so they can show up with medication. to get her to quit seizing and then go to the hospital, right? Which happened a couple of times. But it's just, you're doing stuff, right? You're playing video games or you're just messing around or you're doing whatever. And then you hear a scream, right? And then you're dropping everything and you're running, you know? And then when you get there, if it's a bad enough one, it's just, you know, you're just there, you know? And it really crosses the line. And again, this is kind of a crappy thing to say, but we live in a world where we're starting to recognize a lot more of the mental health aspect. And I promise these two are gonna tie in.
Yeah.
Where people have like, depression, or in the case of, I really resonated with the podcast with your mom when she was talking about schizophrenia, right?
Yeah.
At what point is it you don't have that diagnosis, you don't have that, in some cases, defect, you don't have what that person has, but you're so close in proximity that it's a close second, right? I don't have depression, let's say, but I live with somebody and it's so close to having it that it's, they say a lot of times in obituary, the survivor of, and I get that a lot more, right? And because I'll be honest, it's worse. It's worse to have that. It's worse that, the situation my sister was in, I'm not any sort of like, woe is me sort of thing like that. But there's a different perspective that it gets you into where it's like, I don't have this, but I'm in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So she's seizing and she's screaming and there's all this stuff that's going on and you're just so pissed because like, I can't do anything but be here. Yeah. And I don't want you to do this for a whole multitude of reasons. So that's what, I think every human, and to be kind of vaguely sexist about it, ladies, every man has just an animal. You know what I'm saying? Like every person does, period, right? Yeah. But I think there's extra on the line for guys with testosterone and all this stuff. We all have just a really, really dark side of us, right? Mm-hmm. And that hate and that anger of just feeling like I'm so helpless, right? To help this person. It brought me front and center to like, this is the animal that you are and that you can be, right? Is that right there, So that's one of the biggest things for me is there was that. And then on top of that, that's what, growing up and having my sister, that's what makes the grade for me. Is I never say, oh, it could be worse, because it's like, you're just kind of waiting for something to happen. If you say, oh, well, it could be worse, it's like, okay, the next, like around the corner, that worst thing is going to happen to you just now, right? So to me, it's nice to keep it in perspective because like, the world's a crazy place and we get wrapped up in what we have and what we want, versus like, hey, this is what we don't have. And that's a magical thing, right? We don't have, I don't know, like World War III going on or something like that, or we have each other or whatever else like that. We have our facilities and sometimes we forget the little things in life where it's like, this is a magical moment or this is something special, So that's one of my things too, is it helps me to appreciate, just the little stuff, whenever I'm like, oh, I'm so mad about the dishes in the house being, who cares? It could be much worse.
I agree. No, I agree. And that's the vibes I always got from you too. Like I said, like it just seemed like you always enjoyed every moment, right? Which I think that's huge.
Right.
And I want to go back to that one point too, because you were talking about how men, we have this kind of animal inside, and it has to do with, and you said it had to do with feeling helpless, and I totally agree with that. Like I think the saddest or most frustrating I've ever been is usually when there's something I can't do for someone else, like something that's out of my control, right? That's like I want to help, and I don't know how.
Yep.
And like anything, even if I'm listening to a song that talks about that, like it'll get me every time. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. So I resonate with that.
Yep.
But wow,
sweet, huh?
Yeah. Hey, dude, but to your point, right? It shaped you to who you are now, and I think it's something special, man.
Right.
So yeah. So just real quick, so is your family still around?
My mom has passed away. Okay. Relations with my dad aren't great. I haven't really talked to my stepdad, and that's just because of life, because life's busy and all that other kind of stuff like that, and it's hard to keep up. My mom's side of the family is all over the place. We're talking, Texas, Florida, Alaska, Colorado.
Oh, wow. Poof. Just dispersed. Yeah.
Yep. So Yeah. Again, I mean, to go all the way back to talking about me being a redheaded stepchild, a lot of my childhood and growing up was predicated on you've got to figure it out. Which that's everyone in life. Eventually,
course,
you
yeah.
come to that.
Yeah.
But everyone was kind of very hands off. Where it's like, I'm thankful now because I've spent my life looking for the person that I ended up being. Right, which is so full of myself because I'm awesome. But on top of that, it's, you know, you're going to come to your own conclusions. You know, how do you feel about existence? How do you feel about, you know, even things like religion and all that sort of stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're going to have to form your own opinion.
Agreed.
And it forced me into, what do you see in the world around you? How do you interpret that?
Agreed.
You know,
Yes.
so yeah, that's one of the things I'm thankful for, and it was born out of a really, really tough situation. So
yeah.
Yeah.
As I feel like most things are, right? It's like
Right.
those tough situations that really shape us.
Yeah, yeah. How are
And-
you going to persevere out of this?
Exactly. And not that maybe change wouldn't have happened, but it would have been a lot slower process.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
exactly.
Had that not been the case.
Yep.
So, okay. So, real quick, you ready?
Yeah.
Next question. So this is one of my favorites, or the most interesting I like to hear from a lot of people is, what's the biggest struggle that you've made it through?
Yeah, I had a struggle with that question because I can't just answer it with one thing. There's two things that I've got on that, and it's this fly. That's it. Get out of here. One thing is, everybody I feel goes through a moment of depression, like right whenever you're going into your teens, somewhere around then. I think it gets dark because your body does things and you're introduced to hormones, like an overwhelming amount, where it's just, I think everybody has and can understand and associate with depression and anxiety, right? So much so that now it seems like just kind of pop politics. Everybody talks about it. Oh, well, I've got, anxiety or whatever else like that. But on top of that, the kernel of truth is everyone goes through it, right?
Yep.
So I think I was like 19 at the time and just riddled with anxiety. I mean, just so bad, where it was, there were times whenever I was thinking I was having like a little heart attack, right? Come to find out later that it was a panic attack, you know what I'm saying? And, it just that feeling of like, I can't do anything. I'm sad. I don't know what's going on. If I'm in any sort of big situation, I'll freeze or, I remember there's a time I went up to St. Louis with Nick and Ashley and I had to lay in the back of the car as he drove because I couldn't handle the idea of me not being in control of the car.
Really?
Yeah. Like I was a wreck at one point. I'm already a hyper little idiot, right? But just take that and make me worried about something. I'm like, oh my God, And I came upon a situation where I was supposed to move and it all fell apart. And I'm so happy that it did because it forced me to cross the threshold of how are you going to handle this, right? And again, it went from me all the way up until that point where I was so worried. I was such a nervous wreck. I couldn't do anything. Like there were even times where like I would just double over in pain because my body was just like, you're worried about this. And physically now you're going to feel it, So it got me to where I'm like, okay, what's going on? Because I even went to the doctor and they had me like run on a treadmill to try to like replicate what was going on in those moments. Because I'm like, it feels like my chest is going to pop and everything kind of like hurts for a second. And they're like, I don't know. Because I ran and I did all that sort of stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, it's not happening. We don't know. And then finally I was sitting there thinking about it and it kind of like started hitting me in waves where I asked in the hospital, or no, in the doctor's office, I was like, could it be like anxiety? And they're sitting there with like a little there. Yeah, it happens with kids your age. Just like and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, right? That's what I thought at the time. I was just like, thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
Yeah, but looking at it, it gave me that little bit to hold on to be like, it could just be me. It could all be in here, And I sat with that, and it really started to force me to let go of the situations that I can't have absolute control over, right? And yeah, that was one of the ones that helped really shape me was, okay, what's in your sphere of influence? Okay, there's nothing you can do about it, and that's okay. Because you're literally worrying yourself to death trying to get to the situation or solution that you want in your head, and it's killing you. Chill out. And so I was just like, after that was it. That was the biggest thing that had happened to me at that time to help shape me partially into who I am, where it was just like, man, who cares? You know, you can get so worked up and all this other sort of stuff like that, and so wrapped up in, I need this to happen, and it's not in the cards, you know, so oops. You know, so that's part one.
Yeah.
Part two, and again, this sounds a bit macabre and like I'm like dramatic, but I've had a lot of death, like so much death, all of it. I've had all of the death happen. So from the top, I mean, bear with me because it's going to sound morbid. Grandparents, it's sad.
Yeah.
But when they pass, it's like, okay, you were like 90. You know, like, what happened? I didn't do enough push-ups. You get older, it's what happens. You know what I'm saying? So I've had grandparents pass. My mom's passed away. My best friend Matt passed away. Cliff that we used to work with passed away. Torrance that we used to work with passed away. A friend of mine, Carlos, had passed away. I know so many people that have passed away, right? And it's not a struggle that I have to deal with. It's just, it seems like for how old I am, like normally, you know, you start to get to like 50s or retirement age, you know, like, you know, oh yeah, you know, such and such died of a heart attack or whatever else like that. And it's sad. And there are things like tragedies, like Carlos was, you know, hit by a car, right? He was driving to work. Other guy came across, boom. But the thing is he was in his early 30s, you know, where tragedy. Yeah, that is a legitimate tragedy kind of thing like that. Or in case of my sister, sadly, it was going to happen. It was still tragic, right? But the whole situation was just like, damn, you know, because there's no winning. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
You know. So all of that being said, everybody that I know that has passed away has helped kind of, it's a hurdle to get over, and it's helped curated who I am in the sense of, man, anytime you have that big argument with your lady or you're really mad about something or whatever else like that, I always try to keep in perspective, and tomorrow's not promised. You sincerely, and I know talk is cheap, specifically with this.
Yeah.
But I've had a lot of people go, and it's like, I love you, you know, like I'm not worried about saying that or about being weird or about anything like that, because I hope I don't. I have a lot of stuff that I want to do, right? But my biggest fear in this life is, am I going to reach my full potential? Am I going to be who I'm destined to be? And it is very predicated on how many people have passed away before their time. Cliff was 27, built his own house. He used to go to, he would take mission trips to Africa, and he would teach kids in an orphanage how to read, and he would teach them the Bible. He was a very religious sort of dude, right? Mm-hmm. So much so that his wife had malaria, because that was the danger of what they did. These were good people, right? Yeah. And just one day they're not here anymore. You know, you show up, and like I had Tracy tell me the news. She was like, hey, Cliff's not here. And it was like, bye? You know, like, like it's, that situation is changed forever. And that's life. And that's how it is. And I've got to make the most of it, because, man, you really don't know what's going to happen, you know? So those are, you know, two of my biggest struggles, per se, that I've really had to deal with, you know? Yeah. The end.
Yeah, I remember hearing about the Torrance, thing too, because I was actually pretty close to Torrance too.
Yeah, we all were. There's no way you could know Torrance and
not
be his friend and not love him.
Exactly. Dude, yeah, I know. I remember, because when I first heard about that, I was thinking about all those fun moments, because he was just like the most genuine, funny dude. Yeah. I remember being at, I remember we were all at Outback once, and he was talking to us about 6-minute abs. Like, that was just he was like, I started doing a 6-minute abs thing. Yeah, I feel like it's really working. And he's just like, do this thing while we're just like, he's our server at Outback. We're like, sweet, dude. And then when you hear about it, you're like, what? Yeah. How? And you know, and he had a kid too, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yep. He had a daughter.
That's what I thought. But yeah, that's it's tough, man. It's crazy because, like, it sounds like both of those stories that you shared, what they have in common is what we can control, what we can't, right? Right, which I think is a huge one. And I feel like I've just now stepped into that space. So I haven't had a lot of loss in my life, but I know it's going to happen at some point, right?
Right.
I think I've lost one grandfather. I think that's it.
Right.
As far as that's semi-close, right? So, like, I don't know. So, like I said, I think, because to your point of the first story when you're talking about anxiety, so one thing about myself is I feel like I've always been very out of touch with my feelings for the most part.
Okay.
Just always have been, I think, for the until the last couple of years when I started to realize, like, I'm crying a lot.
Yeah.
Because, like, go through a divorce, I'm like, man, life kind of sucks right now. What's going on? Like, I've never felt this before. I'm always happy,
Yeah.
So it's like...
to that, though, to interject, you've always been spectacular at being you, right? Like, at face value, what you get is who you are. And you've always been like that. Like you were talking about from us being in Nightmare Nevermore, just ready to go. You're like, hey, what's up? And there's no ulterior motives. There's no anything like, what are we doing? You know? Yeah. So you've always been that guy that's just ready to roll, right?
Yeah.
And so I can definitely see that when something happens where it's like, oh God, like it's not something that you would readily have to deal with or to be in touch with. But sorry.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I totally agree. So I appreciate that, by the way. Thank you. But like having that happen is when I realized, that's when I started paying attention to, like, I went to a therapist and they're like, how many emotions do you know? Well, I know happy, sad, mad.
Yeah.
Like,
Metal.
Does headbanging count?
Yeah.
Is that,
I love
like,
this.
okay, so there's like way more emotions than that. So what I want you to do is I want you to just, here's an emotion wheel. I want you to like think about when these occur throughout the day. So like literally the last 3 years have been me like trying to understand emotions and like when things come out and feel, which has been super helpful. Because at the end of the day, we're going to react regardless if we are aware of the emotion or not. Right. But to be able to understand, like, oh, I'm feeling depressed right now. I think it's okay for me just to lay down for a bit and take a breather.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anxiety. Okay, I'm feeling anxiety. You know what? I'm going to go on a walk. Right. And just really being able to have like those, almost like those hacks for like when things are going and not get caught up in like, oh, I'm feeling anxious. Like I have to do something. It's like, actually, you don't have to do anything. You just have to understand that you're feeling anxious.
Yeah.
Go work out.
Exactly. Well, on that note, right there, you out of the box, I feel like, again, have been given a set of tools and understanding about life without knowing it, right?
Yeah.
Because you've always been active. You've always been like, you'll run or you'll work out or you'll do this or you'll do that. Without knowing it, you've been able to fight off a lot of, I feel like, sadness that isn't just overwhelming and right at your door that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Because, like, you've got a lot of the tools that you need, so out of the box, you're like, yeah, just run or work out, or I'm going to lift or whatever else like that. And like, it's a revelation to a lot of people because a lot of people don't do that, but again, like there's something magical about a workout where you feel like you've lifted the whole world. And then afterwards you're like, what was I worried about again? Oh yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Agreed.
So it's like naturally you've already handled a lot of that on your own. So it would probably take a crippling amount of sadness for you to be like, what the hell? I hate this.
I don't like this.
Yeah.
No, it's funny that you say that too, because I think that's true. And I almost wonder if sometimes our bodies and stuff know what to do, and sometimes we get in our own way, right? So like, because I think about like, for me not understanding anything about emotions or understanding the process, I realized like, you know what, I processed a lot of emotions through music.
Yeah.
I didn't know it, but like reflecting on it's like that was probably a really good outlet for me, right? For things, and I had no idea.
Yep.
Right? Because people ask that, I'm like, how are you feeling good? I don't know. What do I have to feel bad about?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's interesting. But yeah, and I've talked on this podcast enough, but I really think at the root of most issues, I think moving the body is like the important part of it, right? Like going for a workout or something. Like if you're feeling mentally not good, go work out. Feels good, they're not good, go work out. Emotionally not good, go work out.
Right.
Because I think we've been wired and programmed just to like when our body experiences emotions, because emotions are what? The language of the body, right? Like to move it, go do something, right? It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So.
And on that, a weird caveat, right? That's why I've throughout the years liked metal, because even when I didn't play it, I still loved metal, and I have always loved metal, right? And it's because of that. So I wanted to ask you a question. When was the last time and what was the song that you listened to that gave you goosebumps?
Did it give me goosebumps?
Mm-hmm.
Whew. That's a tough one,
Right?
Because I'm actually trying to think specifically about goosebumps.
Uh-huh.
But when I think about a song that gave me goosebumps, I would look at my Spotify account that's on my phone right there, but that's not going to happen.
Hey, phone. Give me internet history.
Yeah, exactly. But so I would say. So I go through this thing, and I don't know if you do, but I've met a few people that do too. So when I find a song that really interests me, I listen to it nonstop.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I literally have a song that I've been listening to for the last 4 days, 4 or 5 days nonstop.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be goosebumps, but it's funny how things hit me and resonate at different times. Because that song's been on my liked playlist for a while, and it's been like, I don't care about you. And then just all of a sudden, like, it comes on one day, and I'm like, ooh, oh yeah,
I love Eminem's Rap God.
So I don't know about goosebumps, because goosebumps for me are more of like a whoa, like that's like a like I'm just blown away right now, and I'm trying to think the last time that happened. But as far as resonating, like something that really resonates with me, that's like, ooh, I feel that. I mean, I would say, last song, man, that's tough,
isn't it?
It is tough, because what I've noticed now is because my music taste and emotions have shifted a lot. I think since I've gotten into my feels more over the last couple of years, my music taste has shifted too.
Right, right.
So I still listen to a lot of metal, but at the same time, like I've been listening to a lot of like seductive female music, which is weird for me. It seems like but I'm listening to it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But I don't know. That's a tough one.
It's kind of a trick question.
Yeah.
Because they say, and they is like an Morpheus, whomever, that when you listen to music and you get goosebumps and you have that moment with it when you're in it, that's a mark of a composer, which I heard that like probably 20 years ago, right? So take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But the idea is I can ask you that question and you've been through it and you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Because the music, whatever you like or do, will reach in and get something in there that you do or don't know is like about you. And that's why metal has always gotten me. Because metal's annoying. Like I'm a princess when it comes to metal. Like you can't just be like, oh yeah, this is metal, and I'm like, sweet, and I listen to it.
Yeah.
I never got why people liked Slayer. I think they're hilarious. Kerry King's solos are so annoying, right? Or Five Finger Death Punch. I can almost hear record execs going like, okay, we're going to put these guys from these bands together and they're going to love it. It sounds plastic. It's not metal. It's plastic. It's way too polished. It sucks. What like you say it's metal, but when I listen to it, it doesn't reach in and be like, this is what you're feeling. Like the guttural roar from Randy Blythe from Lamb of God. Right? Some of the stuff he sings about and just how he like roars and screams it out. Now, goosebumps. A little bit of goosebumps, right? Because I don't know what it is, but inside that little kid that's so hateful and angry and is processing all of that, you've given a voice to those emotions where you reach in and it's just like, I'm going to tear the world in half. And while it sounds so negative and so dismal and stuff like that, it's nice for the camaraderie. It's nice to know that there's that feeling and it's a safe place to process that emotion. Because no, I'm not going to go out and like hurt anybody or do anything stupid like that. It's like working out. I don't know anybody who's going to be like, that you aren't a little bit motivated by like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't throw on some like Meshuggah and you're like, I'm going to kill everyone here. You're not. But it just gives you that motivation to be like, I'm going to put a crap load of weight on my back and I'm going to stand up a bunch. Right. Yeah. And when I feel like I can't, I'm going to call myself names and I'm going to dig deeper into that metal music and I'm going to get it done. Right. It's that right there where it's just like, oh, that's so good. And that's why I've loved metal as much as I have, because there's nothing else like it to me. That's like, hey kid, you're not alone.
Agreed.
Like you weren't given a fair shake or you were or whatever. It doesn't matter. We're having this moment right here where we're just going to scream it out together. Right.
Yep.
Now, I love music across the board, minus country. And I say that only because there's only been one country song that's just, again, I'm sure you've listened to music where it just doesn't trigger an emotional response at all. And that's country to me. I don't associate with it. I never will. It's not bad music. It's great. And it takes an incredible amount of talent to do it. Right. So I'm not crapping on it. It's just not for me.
Agreed.
You know? So it's just, metal has been one of the things where it's definitely done it. Jazz too. But yeah, there's certain, it's just, if it speaks to me, it does. If it doesn't, man, it really doesn't. You know?
And to your point, I think metal's the most misunderstood genre out there too. Because I think people associate it just with anger, but you don't realize
it just sounds like screaming.
Exactly, but the messages behind most of the stuff are actually pretty deep stuff, right? And to your point, what's funny though is I'll go back a little bit, but when I used to listen to music, I didn't listen to lyrics at all.
Same.
When I first listened,
that was the last thing you would hear.
My thing, the emotions it brought up for me was like, that's cool, or that's exciting, like that's got energy. So I was always thinking about it from a musical lens, like how does everything go together? And I love that, and maybe that's the music writer in me or something. I don't know, just like how everything goes together.
Well, yeah. Whenever you play music, that's the ears you have on.
Exactly.
Like, oh man, those 16th note triplets are amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And then it wasn't till a little bit later when I started actually paying attention to some of the lyrics, and I started realizing that most of the songs I was singing and screaming to, like, oh, I realized I've been screaming this for 15 years and I don't actually know the words.
Yeah.
I was making up gibberish while I was screaming. So funny. But yeah, some of the stuff is deep. And I know the stuff that always gets me is like anytime songs, which it seems like this is common message from time to time, like when bands talk about like not being enough or being alone or things like that, like those are always messages that tend to get to me, right?
Right.
So yeah, so it's interesting, but yeah, so now like I listen to stuff a lot more from a lyrics perspective.
Right.
I think, and it could be the same fact that like I've been doing this emotional journey now, understanding that.
Right.
So now digging into like the messages of songs is something else. So now I'm getting into music that I normally wouldn't have gotten into in the past because I'm coming from a different perspective, right? Which is really interesting.
That's the thing with me. It's like you can't just slap metal on it and say it's because do I resonate with that, right? Like what they're singing or screaming about or whatever else like that, like you could tell whenever they pour emotion into it or not.
You can.
You could feel it. You know what I'm saying? And you could feel it when it's definitely not there. Where it's like, okay, well, yeah, you guys are playing music and that's good. So, like it doesn't do anything at all, So yeah, it's a combination of all of it. The music has to itself sound good and impressive and stuff like that. And it's just the extra cherry on top when it's like, man, that's a deep song.
It's deep, yeah, exactly. I like that. Okay, so what is something that you're currently going through that's positive or negative?
Being a dad, and it's incredibly positive. And it's challenging. My wife is now a nurse, and we are she's like not new, but she's within her first year. So it's nights, it's 3 days a week, it's 12-hour shifts. We're juggling schedules from the kid's schedule to mine to hers to life. And it's very much so like every day seems like you're at the tail end of a marathon. We're like, all right, I'm almost there. It's the constant feeling of that. You get home like, all right, I was outside in the sun all day. Okay, I'm going to do dishes. You kick the door open, quit crying. Don't do that. What do you need? Okay. So it's that right there. And on top of all of that, feeling like with work right now, with what I do, feeling like, is this what I want to do? Am I going to be doing this forever? Am I sure this is what I want to do? Just finding your place and like, okay, cool. And that's kind of what I've been going through currently. It's not bad. And it's not good sometimes. It's what you do to make life happen. And so the reason that it's something worth noting is because again, a lot of time it makes the grade because it's a lot easier to give up. It's a lot easier to be like, I can't do this, which I've had that thought so many times where it's like, I'm just going to quit my job and like fly a desk. I'm just going to work somewhere where I turn my brain off and I'm okay. Now I'm going home. And it's so tempting, because life is just so intense. And with my wife, it's the same thing. Everything is on the line for her. Because you go to, she's in the ER, right? So it's like the worst of the worst. No one goes to the ER to be like, hey, how you doing? You having a good day? Here's a donut. I'll see you later. Like my arm's sideways and I'm bleeding internally.
Yeah.
Fix it, And if something happens, they don't live anymore.
Yes.
And I think the worst thing, and this is just stories. So I'm not living it, So it's like she'll have to do that and deal with the families and deal with the knock-on effects and again, akin to, not having depression, but being around the people that have it. How do you handle somebody on their physical worst day they've ever been alive, dealing with so much pain and so much that's gone wrong because something has like blown up inside them or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then you're just, see ya. Like you go home. I'm sure there's job well done and stuff like that, but eventually there's going to be like a kid that's sick that you can't really fix all the way.
Yeah.
You don't leave that at the door, And so her coming home, it's not my stuff, but it's like, damn, like you feel that weight.
Agreed.
Where it's like, oh. So it's all hard in the sense of you manage that stuff at scale and at a moment to moment basis, right? There's no room for, am I doing this right? You're just existing and trying to make that moment happen, right? And then after all of that, the weird part that I struggle with in the quiet moments when it's like bedtime, one day that's going to end. And I don't mean that in we're all going to die. Yeah. I mean that in like one day she's not going to be on nights, or one day my job's going to be different, or one day the kids will be older and I won't have to make sure that they're not coloring on the walls or setting the house on fire. I don't know what I'm going to do. I do know it's, I'm going to graduate to a different set of problems and stuff like that, but it's very unceremonious. Right? Where it's like one day you're here, like you had talked about a divorce, I'm sure at the time it was the hardest thing. Yeah. And now one day you're here and you don't feel like, all right, cool, I've got that settled. Like you're always kind of left with it. And then now it's just on to a different set and circumstance. Exactly. You're like, cool, next, Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, you got to grow from that sometimes, right? Like It's like you have two options. You can either let it consume you and be done, which I've seen, and it's sad. It's sad when you can just tell like someone just gave up.
Yeah.
But I think the better alternative is just to realize that it sucks and then figure out how to get through it. And you're always going to be better at the other end of it, right? That's the thing. Right.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's
even if you whiff it is the thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even if it's like, man, I handled that like crap, but I still did it.
You did.
It's just like for next time, I'm not going to scream at this person at Starbucks.
You learned something, right? Yeah, agreed.
No, now awesome. I can't ever go back.
Oh yeah. Then two. So who is someone that has changed your life that doesn't know it?
Oh man. Okay. There's a lot of people that have, and I'm gonna try to narrow it down and not be so long-winded, but I'm gonna fail at that too. I've had a lot, again, with growing up and everybody being kind of hands off, I was always looking for somebody who would like take me by the shoulders and be like, look, kid, I know what you're going through and I'm going to show you the ropes, right? No one is that, but everyone has a little piece to that puzzle.
Yeah.
Every single person that you meet, if you give them enough time, if you do this, or if you, decide to buy in, there's a little bit that you can take or exchange with somebody. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed. Yeah.
There's somebody out there who is going to show you just enough to let you realize you're that person that you need. No one's the adult. You were all figuring it out.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, good night. No. So the thing for me with all of that is there's a lot of people in my world that have been big and small at the same time. I'd say some of the biggest players are Tracy, who was my boss at Outback, and Nathan, who's a friend of mine that I used to work for whenever I was living in Colombia. And friend is half of the equation because those two I consider mentors, right? Tracy took me whenever I was 19 years old and dealt with this little 19-year-old idiot Seth who was like hyper and like, I don't know what to do with life. And somehow didn't fire me and just kept pouring that time in, right? And it was through the I guess the venue or the lens of Outback, But still, it was very much so a feeling of, if you show up and you try hard every day, we're going to keep trying this until you get it, right? I'm not going to give up on you because I see something in you that you might not see yet, right? Mm-hmm. So from my guitar teacher, who had very much so the same, Tom Rowe, who had that same mentality, right? To Tracy, who was like, there was more on the line with Tracy because she could have at any time been like, you're out. Like, you suck at this, you're fired.
Yeah.
Right? But saw and was like, I need people. No, I'm kidding. And was like, I'm going to put you through the hardest station in the kitchen and you're going to come out ahead. She saw that before I did, right? And my friend Nathan, and he is a general contractor, does a lot of work in Fulton, builds houses, all that other kind of stuff like that. And it's just, there are these very quiet people in the background that, in case you have that certain situation and you're bold enough to ask why, you would never know. And so Nathan was the same way. We learned by doing. That was his biggest thing. He could burn a house down. You could not wire something or not frame something correctly. And, there goes your shear wall and your house is coming down on top of you, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Or just any sort of little thing where, you don't know the dangers of everyday life that somebody is tangling with, right? He was my first avenue into working with electrical, right? I remember we were in a house I think it was in Fulton, and we were getting down and he points to a live wire, right? Electrical wire. And it's just Romex hanging out of the wall. He goes, you see that? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you don't fear it, you respect it. Because the minute you start fearing something is the minute that you get too nervous and you're going to make something happen because you don't know what's going on. If you don't know, that's fine. We learn by doing. But you don't fear it, you respect it. You understand what it is and what it can do. That just, everything in my world just changed, right? And same thing with Tracy, is it's like erosion. I'm going to keep doing this and I'm going to keep giving you this time because you're that person worth having around, right?
Yeah.
You don't have the skill set, but it's just a matter of time is all it is.
Yeah.
Given enough time, you've got the grit to stick with it, to do it, to want to prevail, and you see that. So from the outside looking in, people can see that before you can see that. And a lot of times, right? And so those two are big influences on my world. Again, my guitar teacher, Tom, because again, with playing music, with lifting weights, with doing everything, it's not what you're doing. It's the vehicle and the mind frame that you're bringing to do that thing.
Yep.
Right? Do you want to do it? Do you want to make the grade? Are you going to persist? Right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of these lessons translate across the board. It sounds chintzy, but a lot of times whenever I'm at work, there's times when I go back to Outback where it's like, yeah, like I've hired and fired people. I've had to train people. I've had to work. I've had to suffer through extra hours and all this other sort of stuff. And it sounds silly because it's like, it's just food, Yeah. But the journey up to there is so much more. And so it's that. It's not that you are what you do. It's you are who you are that's choosing to do that or you're in that circumstance, So another one of the people that's been really influential and helped kind of craft who I am was Bonifacio.
Okay.
Do you remember?
I remember the name.
So you remember the name. So I'm going to everyone out there. Bonifacio is a guy from Oaxaca, Mexico. And he was a prepper at Outback Steakhouse when Ricky and I were working at Outback Steakhouse. Okay, so now we're caught up. Bonifacio, I'm very lucky in the sense that I was able to ask the questions and want to know Spanish and want to know the guys, because that really changed my life as well, right? It changed my perspective on a lot of things. I've never felt like such, and I hate saying this, I've never felt like such a dumb American until I started asking questions to those guys who are from a whole other country, right? And they're like, what do you mean? And just the retort was like, I don't know anything, at all. And what did it for me was, Bonifacio grew up in Oaxaca, which is, if like Mexico, it's at the, not at the very peninsula end into Honduras and stuff, but it's at the very southern end, Pacific side, right?
Yep.
So that's what we're talking. His first language wasn't even Spanish, right?
Okay.
You would assume.
I would have assumed, yeah.
rightfully so, because we don't know any different, because we don't ask, because we don't, you know, it's not willful ignorance. It's just you don't know, right? And I crossed that bridge with those guys, and he is from in Oaxaca. There is the Zapotec people, right?
Okay.
That being said, his first language that he learned at home was Zapotec, right?
Okay.
And indigenous people to that area. Whenever I learned that, I was like, you're here in Missouri. he grew up not knowing Spanish, and then as he like went into the world, for him, Spanish was his second language, and then came to the States to learn English, right? And again, unless you're working at Outback asking very specific questions, you wouldn't know at all, whatsoever. Yep. So all of that context leads me to this next story. What we used to do back in the back of the kitchen is Bonifacio would take a large trash bag that fit in like the 55-gallon rollable things. He would take the trash bag and tie it around a ladder that led to the roof. And it was like perfectly vertical, so it would just hang, right? Mm-hmm. And being a prepper, you would go through 5 gallons of this or 1 full gallon of that, and it was all made of plastic. And he would throw this thing, and at the end of a shift, he would have a full bag of plastic, right? And I would see him doing it, and I would just be like, huh. So I asked him the very ignorant question, like, how much money do you get out of that, right? Because, like, why he's saving all this plastic, and I know at the time that he would take it somewhere, you know, because it's, you know, over a decade ago, that's what you would do, you know. And so he goes, I don't get any money. And I go, why are you doing that? And he goes, why would you not? When you could save the world for free, why wouldn't you make that choice? And I was just like, I'm so dumb. Ah! He would just do it because you would save and take all that plastic, and then he would go, I think, take it to Walmart, which they had like a bin like that, and they would recycle it, right?
Yep.
And it was just the simple, like in my head, it's like, we have a trash can outside, just throw the stuff away. You would have to be motivated by money to go out of your way to do that. And no, this dude lived such a life to where it was like, this is where I live, and I'm going to keep it clean, and I'm going to respect everything around me, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's just who this guy was. And I felt like such a small person. And he wasn't trying to be insulting at all. Yeah. But just his perspective was like, if you could do the right thing, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Heavy stuff. Like super heavy. And again, if it was just some dude telling me that, like, you know, like, get a job kind of thing like that, right? Yeah. It's easy to just talk is cheap, and you could throw an insult at somebody. But to watch as somebody went from, you know, middle of nowhere, Oaxaca, Mexico, not even knowing the language of the country, to, I think he was in the service, but he was telling me about, I think he was in the Marines, I think, like their version of that sort of thing like that, and would fight cartel. And he was saying that, you know, he would go up a mountain, do all these things, you know, have like gun on his back sort of thing, and they're all doing this sort of stuff. And at the end of the day, you know, since there's nothing around, he goes, I remember there were times when all we would have to eat would be cilantro. And he goes, so we would take a tortilla, cilantro, salt, and that's what you ate for the day. And I'm like, and you're here in Missouri having to hear everybody tell you to learn the language or to get out, or you're working a crappy job, dude. You're working a crappy job. And to you, this is opportunity, right? Just that by itself rearranged my entire life, right? Wow. Because again, it's easy for all of us to be like, because we grew up here.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, whatever, it's America sort of thing. Like, you know, and when you think about it, how often do you want to just go out and be like a landscaper? None. None of the time, dude. There's nothing wrong with an honest job, but to fight and to learn several languages and to go through all the hoops to becoming a citizen, which I'm told is not easy, right? Because I've known a handful of people from all over the world. There's a girl that I worked with, Beata, and she's from Germany, right? Husband was in the military, brought her over, and she told me what she had to go through to become an American citizen, right? Not easy. Takes years, right? Yeah. After all of that, then you're surrounded by a bunch of people who genuinely don't want you around. And that's Bonifacio.
Yeah.
And he's just there, and he's just doing his thing, and he's just living, because day after day, that's who he is, you know? So all those guys just very much so warped how I look at the world in such a good way, because again, I wouldn't know until I wanted or didn't. I wouldn't know until I thought to ask. And I wouldn't have asked unless I was curious enough to. I remember the specific moment. There was a guy on Dish, and I forget who it is, but he was from Mexico, and I asked Torrance how to say the word hot in Spanish, because I was going to hand him a pan that was hot, and I didn't want him to touch it. Torrance goes, caliente. I'm like, cool. From that moment, right then and there on, everything changed, because I liked the language. I liked working with those guys. I liked the camaraderie. I really liked the stories. Every one of them have their story to tell, right?
Yeah.
And it's so intense, right? And you wouldn't know, because would you think to ask? Or are you in that sort of situation? Or do you care? Because, you know, there were a lot of people at Outback, or just in general, that just, they didn't care. And why would they? You know, I'm not telling people like, you know, you have, these are important things for you. Everybody's got their own world. I just got lucky enough to be in that situation where I could go through that, you know? So those kind of guys definitely were huge influences on my world and how I am today. And the list goes on, and it almost feels bad that I can't mention more people, but in the sake of not being here for 24 hours, I'm gonna stop there.
That's funny. It's cool that you were like, even at that young, right? Like thinking 19 or whatever, right? Thinking that you I don't know, that you were wise enough to want to ask questions and to learn from people in that space. So that's something I didn't do. Like, I just didn't. Like, I was like, my relationship with people were not deep back then. It was more just like, let's have fun. Right. And that was me. So to your point, when I was at Outback, I'm grateful that Tracy let me have a lot of fun. Yeah. Because that's what happened. Yeah. Because it was like, you know, she knew what I wanted to do, and she was, and I love that she was up for it, because she did help me in that space too. Because it was like, because, you know, she knew that I was one of those people that, like, I'm bored being a busser. What else can we do? Yeah. You know, I've mastered that. What do we got? Yep. Okay. You want to do a host? Yep. Let's do it. Yep. Okay. And then after that, like, you know what? I want to try food prep. Okay. Come in the morning. We'll do food prep. Right. Did that like once or twice. Was like, yeah, this ain't my gig. No thanks. But it was fun. Yeah. And then one day I remember being like, how about dishes? I want to try dishes. Yeah. And dude, I did one shift and I was like, I respect these dishwashers way more now. Dishwashing was the worst. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. It's so much fun though. God, yeah, it's so much fun. It was fun, but yeah, it was a, you know, I was it Francisco and who else do we have? Who's the other dishwasher? It's been too long. It's been a while, but I remember them because they were cool all the time. I was just using my like high school Spanish, basic Spanish, and just using it out of context all the time, like. Gordo Tortuga, like, you just give me a fat turtle? Like, yes, yes, amigo. And he was just like, they would just laugh. And then every time I'd come to drop off dishes, that was my thing, is I'd say something random to him, like, gracias, and I'd say something random, and they'd be like, oh, amigo, and we'd just laugh. But yeah, so I love that. I love that. I love that she, I think, because she saw potential, right. In me, but also I love the fact that she was very open enough to allow me to kind of just be me too. Because I mean, we played. I don't know if you remember the Chili's prank that we pulled as bussers. You three of you guys went into a Chili's and bust their tables until you got kicked out. It seems so much better in my head because obviously that was my idea. So I just remember being like, you know what, Tracy, I have this idea. Yeah. And I want to run it by you. But hear me out. Okay. So I want to do a April Fool's prank on Chili's. Okay. Yeah. And I told her, okay, this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to get I'll give it a couple other bussers. We're going to go there, Outback uniforms, bussing, everything. We're going to walk in. We're not going to say anything. We're just start bussing and cleaning the tables, and we're just going to walk out. And that's the plan. And she's like, okay, that sounds hilarious. I was like, okay, cool. So hopefully, right, we can just have some fun, playful banter between us and Chili's, right? Yeah. Chili's didn't get it. They were not happy. So it was me. It was me, Stephen Beanland, and I believe it was it Jason Greider? I think so. I think it was us three. Yeah. So what we did, we got the bus stuff. We're like, it's April 1st. Let's do this. Yeah, yeah. So we went in there and we literally just like, we walked in and we just meant business. I was like, you go left, I'll go straight, you go right. And that's exactly what we did. And the funniest part is we did that. And their busser, like there were tables that were dirty and their busser was just kind of standing back there. Like wouldn't even do it anyway. So we just walked in there. We went, we just cleaned everything, whatever. We walked to the back. We dropped off the dishes. And I was the fastest, so I got there first. And then I believe Steven was second. So we got our stuff there. And of course, we were like, what are you guys doing? And we just kind of like walked off. We didn't say anything, just kept walking.
Yeah.
And then Jason was the last one, so he ended up getting back there, and we exited. We were in the car. We're like, "Where's Jason?"
Yeah.
And he comes running out, and we're like, "What happened, bro?" He's like, "Dude, they surrounded me back there and were calling me names." He's yelling at me. I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "They didn't get it." And so we leave. And we're hoping that we were just waiting that whole day, like retaliation. Like we're waiting. Like, what are they gonna do? I'm ready.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then I show up there like a month or two later.
Yeah.
And was like, hey, did you guys have this incident where you had bussers come in and bust up? Like, yeah, we did. They're like, was that you? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, we had our managers telling us that we could go beat you guys up if we wanted to. What? Cool. Cool, bro. Like, they didn't get it at all.
Yeah, yeah.
But, dude, it was a good moment. So, like, so that was obviously the fun we had at those places. So, but yeah.
I remember hearing about that, too, because I came in and you were like, I had already heard about it. They were like, yeah, they went over and they bust some tables over at Chili's. And you're just doing your thing, right? And then you're like, oh, yeah, dude, yeah, we went in there. And they were pissed.
yeah, that's exactly right. They were. It was so good. But, dude, yeah. That was fun, though. Yeah. I love it. So what I've noticed is most of my jobs that I've worked have had that level of freedom, which works for me, which I'm glad because, I mean, you might know this. Like, I'm one of those people that, like, very self-motivated, like to get things done. Like, I'm going to work hard.
Right.
I just want to be left to kind of do my thing. Sure. And I think that she did a good job there. And I think even when I transitioned and went to some other jobs like Nike and things like that, like, I still happen to fall in those places where that was the case.
Yeah. And
I'm always curious on why. And I think because that hasn't always been the experience for a lot of people that I worked with. Like, oh, I always felt micromanaged. Well, I didn't. Right. And I think a lot of that, and I've tried to put that into motion. I think that like a lot of it has to do with like the value you bring, right? If you can if you can show people that you're there to get things done, they tend to give you more freedom when you actually show them that you can do things. So I wonder if that's an aspect of it. But
I think it is. I think it's a two-part.
Yeah, exactly.
For Tracy, with that whole process is you've got to go through and you've got to field all these people, right? You've got to find the people that want to do it and want to be there, right? That's the hardest part. After that, you build a community, you build camaraderie, you build a team, right?
Yep.
That's you have that, you have a team, you have all this and all that, then the ship sails. That's it.
Yep.
That's been the biggest thing about that is number one important thing. Do you want to show up? Do you want to do it? Are you going to be the person that wants to do this, right?
Yep.
Hard part's over.
Yep.
Because I can teach you, you can learn, we can do these things, I can set expectations. Now it's about building that team, that community, that group of people, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so lost. I mean, where I'm at now, they're so off the mark because I will bring that and I will have that, right? And I can cultivate that. But right outside of it, it just falls apart. And it's like, you guys are screwing up so bad. It's okay. Does this person want to be here? Awesome. Now let them do their thing. Let me show them and let's build a team because that's what's going to get it done. Because the minute you don't feel a part of a team, see ya. Like like I'm going to spend more of my life and my time here with you guys feeling not a part of it than I am with my own family or my own free time. Why?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like the work industry keeps getting tougher and tougher. And it's more important for us to have that camaraderie and that team aspect. And that's what I used to do. So with Nike, I mean, that was part of my job was like leadership development. So I was trying to come up with creative ways and strategies and plans on how do we function better as a team? Because to your point, right, we have to be able to feel like we're part of something in order to be there. Because there's plenty of places you'd go to and you realize like people just keep leaving. Why do you think they're leaving? And of course, it's like, well, they did this or they did it. Like, hold on, let's look at ourselves real quick. What are we cultivating here? What are we building? And we come to find out, like, if we dig deep enough, we realize, like, oh yeah, like we're not cultivating that place where people want to be here.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, leadership and people will make everything in those spaces. So
100%.
It's crazy. Okay. So next question. So what is a skill or talent that you like to share with us?
You're talking about me being young and wise. I appreciate it, but I think that's off the mark. I think what I had was a natural curiosity because I had to have it. Again, because no one's come to save me from myself.
That's fair.
I've got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I've always been curious about a lot of stuff, right? Yep. Which is what drove me to do all these things. That's my biggest thing is naturally I'm curious. And there are sometimes there's somebody I'm very close with that he's great. He's fantastic. Mm-hmm. One of my very best friends. And he's just, a lot of times he's just not curious about stuff. And it's not disappointing or anything else like that, but it's so perplexing because I'm like, why? Why wouldn't you want to know more? And again, I get why. It's what I suffer from, right? So I don't know what did it per se, like what exactly did it. I know where it came from, but I've always been just so naturally curious, right? Mm-hmm. Again, to tie these two things in and to do, I guess to sort of answer that question. I remember whenever the day came that I looked up vaguely what Tracy made at Outback, mm-hmm. right? Because it was, it was a different internet back then. It was the Wild West. But Indeed would give you, it was right whenever they came out with the salary window, right? You could write in and be like, traditionally they make between, this is the low end, this is the high end, they make somewhere around there, right? Yeah. I've seen a lot of people talk crap on people in higher positions, right? Where it's like, well, you're making all the money, you should do all the stuff, and blah, 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 blah. I didn't have that. For whatever reason, I was curious and it sat on my mind and I'm like, I wonder what Tracy makes because I respect Tracy, right? Yeah. And still to this day. So I looked it up on Indeed, what a Outback proprietor makes. And at the time, I think it was somewhere around like 60,000. Mm-hmm. And my first thought was not like, well, I deserve some of that. I don't deserve anything. I deserve what I work for, right? So that being said, I think deserve is kind of a really backhanded word. My point of view whenever I looked it up was, you work that hard for that? You have to pour in at least 6 days a week, anywhere between 55 to 60 hours in a work week to make that happen? Yeah. And again, that was something that changed my perspective too, is like, man, you got to be wanting it at that point because I know, because I was in proximity and I saw, blood, sweat, and tears, like you're doing all of that work. Tracy slept in her car more than a handful of times because of the shift. She closed that night and had to open the next morning. And at the time at OCHB, she lived out here in Barnett. It made more sense for her to sleep in her car and then to get up and then work that next day than it did for her to drive all the way back and miss out on sleep, right? And the first thought for a lot of people would be like, well, yeah, you're making all that money. No, there's no amount of money that's worth it. Not for that right there. She wanted to do it and she wanted to be in it and stuff like that. And I just so happened to be curious enough to look it up. So a skill or anything like that, it's more of like a frame of mind that I would like to see a lot more people curious about stuff, right? And again, I get why people aren't because there's so much to do in a day. Yep. There's so much stuff that you have to worry about. You can't know everything, nor would anybody want to know everything. But I feel like we're in the right place because you're doing it. Mm-hmm. You're curious enough to want to ask questions and to want to find out and to just that. Exactly, yeah. So I don't think that there's a skill or anything that I could really teach anybody because you have to want to be persistent. You have to want to be curious, right? So I think that would be more stuff like a frame of view. Keep that top of mind is why, Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. It's funny because I've always been curious too, but I think when I was younger, I think my ego got in the way of my curiosity a lot of times. Like, when you're younger, like, oh, I know everything. Right. I'm awesome and I'm going to do this. Exactly, right? Yeah. But it's funny, the older I get, the more I realize like how important curiosity is. Like, I think it's essential. I think we need it. So I feel the same way when I'm like, wait, you don't want to know why? Yeah. Like my favorite question that used to be when I go to work, just as a fun, just off the wall question is like, hey, what are you learning about recently? And almost everybody's like, I don't know. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, I think it's good to learn something all the time. Right. So, hey, next time I see you, let's see if you can come up with something. And it's funny how some people's perspective shifted when they'd be like, oh, if I don't have something, Ricky's going to, and then it'd be like, oh, they'd have some learning stuff. But it baffles me because I think that's like,
I don't know. For me, it seems essential. It seems
Yeah.
like curiosity is like one, like I want to know a lot of things. I want to help a lot of people. I want to understand people. And to do that, you have to be curious in nature.
And the first time that something really rocks your world, right? Like that you know that you don't know, or you know that there is a depth to what you're trying to learn, that's what makes the grade for me, where you're like, oh, I don't know anything at all. I'm so dumb.
No, but that's what's so cool is you're always like, when you do that too, you learn a lot of new things, right? About other people, about yourself, about just everything in general. And it's when I think that first started, I think when I was working at Brains at the time, I was doing product stuff. Yeah. Because we used to, is I had this thing where I was like, I know my stuff. And then I got to the point where I'm like, well, what if I didn't? Like, what if I just accepted that, like, I didn't know things sometimes? Because, you know, I mean, I think some of us have that when we're younger, especially, maybe still, of where it's like, we don't want to admit that, like, I don't know that. Right. Even if it's basic. Right. And I'm finding out, like, I'm all up for saying, like, I don't know that. And a lot of people look at me like, how do you not know that? Yeah. I don't know. Common sense is... It's a two-sided thing, right? Because some people are expecting you to know things. Like, how would you not know that? And sometimes it would come off as, I don't care to know. Right? Because again, there's enough to do in a day and in a lifetime. I can't know everything. Why would I care? Exactly. So it could come off like that versus the very genuine, like, I don't know, let's find out. Yeah. You know, like I would like to come to know. Right? So I agree. Yeah. And it's interesting. But the funny thing is once I started doing that and made that shift, everything got better. Because think about it. Like, one, I learned something I didn't know before and I admitted it. So that's good. Yeah. And then, I knew for next time. So it just becomes like, when you're curious like that, you realize, like, your world just expands, right? Yeah. So, and you can be a real human person around other people too. Exactly. Because, like, you know, there is some sort of ego. And there's a couple of people I work with now where it's just like, well, you just act like you know. And it's like, I get you, but charisma can only go so far. If I could be human with you, right? And be like, listen, I don't know, meaning not meaning I don't care, but I don't know, but I can find out. Then you have that bridge, that connection where it's like, okay, cool. You know, because, like, at the very least, I'm not going to lie to you, you know, like, I'm not going to be like, this one thing, you know, so. Agreed. Cool. I like that. Okay. So it's funny that I just said this because this is the question that's up next. So what is something you're learning about currently that you'd like to teach us? Currently, I am learning about, I'm always going through, and what I do now is I'm a solar installer, right? And I had a little bit of time exclusively as an electrician, right? So a lot of stuff to do with electricity, specifically through the guise of solar, right? I love solar. I've been doing it for the past 10 years. And I want to know all there is to know about it, right? So my journey is never done there, and I am always curious. I mean, if it isn't about products, then it would be about ease of installation, about how to do the right thing or the best thing or something like that. And my mind goes back a lot to the engineering side of it, right? My boss right now is a professional engineer, and he does stuff like structural analysis and all this other sort of stuff like that. One of my best friend's wives is an electrical engineer, and she works for Ameren, and I love picking her brain, right? So that's some of the stuff that I'm doing now, is I'm just constantly curious about that because there's so much to learn, right? And even a decade in, I still don't know anything, right? But I know enough to know that I want to keep going and I want to keep doing that. So that's one of the things I'm doing right now, is what does it take for all of that? I mean, even down to, like, how would I design a trailer, you know, that you could pull to a job to where you could just dispatch and say go, right? What would be the fastest way to do this? You know, if I ran people and it was like a 24-hour thing, and, you know, you have your morning crew and your night crew, you know, what would be the best way to hang a solar panel where it wouldn't, like, slide off the roof without any attachments on it? Just that kind of stuff right there. So it's awesome. So then what's one little nugget you can give us about solar stuff? Oh man, I want to start my own channel, and I want to start teaching people about that, because the number one thing that I've seen with solar is people who don't know solar ask the same question, which is, how many solar panels does it take to run, like, my refrigerator? Or how much do I need for my house? And it's so, and again, I'm not, there's no negativity to this at all. A lot of people don't know about it, and why would they?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's like,
I know nothing about solar.
Yeah.
So,
it would be the equivalent of like, oh, do you know how they get this little plastic end on shoelaces? I don't care. Like that's something that somebody else does. And until I'm in the market for shoes and shoelaces, then I'm going to pay attention to
exactly.
Right?
Yep.
So that one very specific moment between somebody becoming curious in solar and having the right framework of questions and answers and outlooks. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So one little thing that I would love to do about solar is just to teach. Mm-hmm. Just in general. Right?
Just in general?
Yes, because I like that. I like knowing that everything is tied together. And again, it's a haunting feeling knowing that we're all these grown-up little kids running the world, yep. Right? Even the people who like run the like substations and utilities and nuclear facilities that produce electricity, mm-hmm. they know what they're doing, mm-hmm. right? But like, there's no one at the top aside from the guy who's at the top. So there's no one telling that person what to do. So there's a big portion of somebody's life that's just like, I think this is a good idea. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, and we all have that, right? And so it flows from all the way at the top, all the way down through, right? And an awkward tangent that I've got is my neighbor's house was struck by lightning about a month ago. Direct hit. Like literally trees all around just like that. There's a tree that's in their backyard that's 3 times the size of their house. The lightning said, hold my beer, came all the way down and hit right above their door, right? Their back door. Blew their refrigerator off the wall, burnt up some stuff along there. I mean, it was a lightning bolt that hit a house. It was destruction, right? It was loud, it was crazy, and they were like right next door, right? I could take a rock and go, and hit them, right? That close. And so it really got my wife and everyone around to kind of ask, like, well, what happened? Because the outlets were blown out of the wall and all this other sort of stuff like that. And until that happened, nobody would know to ask the question. And so my wife was asking, like, what if that hit our place? I'm like, you're along for the ride, And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, okay. The reason that it didn't hit the tree is beyond me because it should have hit the tree. Yeah. Right? It hit the house, so that's where we're at. If Mother Nature picks, this is my path of destruction, you're along for the ride. Let's hope they had a ground bar in. That way the electricity can go from, up there to down here, because that's what it's looking to do, is just equalize throughout the ground. It's DC. There isn't anything else like that that's going on, so that's what it's, and when you follow the path, it hit there, it hit that outlet, and then it went through their meter base, which is where the ground rod is, right? So it blew everything up to find its path to ground. So as an electrician, I get it, and I understand what happens. She goes, so what would we do? And I'm like, here's the deal. You've got a lightning bolt that, let's just say, is about this big around, and you've got ground wire that's that big. It turns everything to plasma, lights it on fire, and melts it until it goes away. Even if you have a whole house, a whole house surge protector, it's gone. Bye. Forever. The best you can hope for is that the ground does its work, in which it did, and in their case, it just melted everything between A to B. So the stuff like that, I would like people to have the ability to know, because until you ask, like, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of stuff out there. And to that point, I had told her, like, we're surrounded by a lot of stuff that I don't think you know is in our day-to-day, right? For instance, it takes half an amp to stop a human heart. Fun, right? The smallest in this house that's behind us, I keep pointing to the house that's behind us, the smallest gauge of wire is a 14 gauge of wire. It's a 15 amp circuit. That's 30 times enough to stop your heart. And you go to sleep with that outlet right there, just hanging out. Yeah. So at any point, if you decide to hang up a picture and you drive that through the wall, that's a fire, or that shocks you, or something like that. And it's enough to kill you 30 times over. And that's the smallest version of wire, right? It goes up to something that's more than 100 times what there is, right? And, there's that. I mean, water. We grew up at the lake. You remember there's a spot at the outlet of the Bagnell Dam. It's called the drowning machine, is what people call it. You know what that is?
Not really.
At the where the water dumps out, it creates a current, right? Where the water does this, and then it comes and it circles back up. If a boat or a boater gets caught in there, They just get drugged down along the bottom, come up for air, get drugged down along, and then they're dead.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's nothing they can do except for whenever the water patrol comes, they can hope that they come up at the right spot. That way they can hook the body and get them out, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of dangerous stuff that happens all the time, forever around us, all over the place, right? So just stuff like that is some of the stuff that I would like to teach, go over, show a demonstration to, because I find it interesting,
It is interesting because I know nothing about any of that stuff anyway. So, okay. So you want to do a YouTube channel?
Something like that, yeah. I think it would be fun.
Dude, you should do it. That'd be sweet because you got a good personality for it, right? Good personality. You articulate well. You're very intelligent. I feel like that would totally fly because I think that's like an essential thing that people would be looking for, especially with so much stuff shifting to solar, which I assume stuff keeps shifting that way. Is that right? Or is it fluctuating now?
It is. I mean, it's with me being in it for the past decade, I've watched it go from like rock and stick to like higher end, microchips and stuff like that. Not that it's always been like that, but I mean, it went from inverters have, transformers, which are big and heavy, and it's like 200 to 300 pounds per like one small thing, versus now you can get it in half the size. I mean, it's a lot like computers.
Yep.
Right.
But then just getting smaller.
Right.
More
Computer
compact,
used to be a size of a whole house. Now it fits in your pocket. And so that's the same thing because it's just technology at the end of it. That's what I deal in. So yeah. But yeah, I would like to, because I mean, I like being goofy. I like messing around, but I also really kind of like teaching. There's something about it that's fun to me, right?
Yeah, feel the exact same way. Teaching, super rewarding.
Right.
It's interesting. Yeah, I love it. I love teaching. It's funny because it took me forever to find that out too about myself.
Right.
Because I realized because I actually started to ask myself these questions, which, right, we talk about asking other people questions to learn more, but you got to ask questions to yourself too, to understand yourself. And I had to start doing that. And the moment I started saying why do I exactly?
Yeah, why do I do this?
Yeah, and it's funny because I had this little document that was I can't remember who came up with it, but it's like you ask yourself why 5 times or something like that, right? And it's to get to the core of what you're talking about, or what your interest is, or what your purpose is.
Right.
And yeah, I ended up, when I did that exact little test or whatever it was, I got to the fact oh, I really enjoy training. And then if I started flashback, hindsight, that's why I had so much patience for teaching music to people, because I like teaching.
No, case in point, you sat right down and we slowed it down again at the being the not sexy part of learning. Learning triplets is da da da.
Oh yeah, and that was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and you with intent and purpose sat down and then took your time to write down the tabs and all that stuff like that. Because what started off is that slow, that speed is up to speed is, and it takes a lot of curse words from there to there.
For sure. No, but it's funny because that's what I realized, because there was music. I did the same thing with martial arts when I was learning that. The first thing I wanted to do is after I learned, I wanted to teach it.
Yep.
Because I did that with work.
You know more. When you teach, you understand more about the subject because you're forcing yourself into it. Yeah.
People don't realize, if you look at the hierarchy of learning or whatever, retention, it's lectures is what people like to listen to, but you have a very low form of retention where you retain most information actually teaching others, right? Yeah. And it's the same thing. So it's
one of the things that makes me so mad is people will say, those who can't teach, bullshit.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm saying that right now for the whole world. Sorry, the internet. Yeah. But but it's just no, if you're really good, you're going to do both. You're going to lead by example and you're going to teach.
Exactly. Because, and that's the thing is when I would learn something interesting, the first thing I want to do is teach everybody else about it. Yeah. Right? I mean, it's just what I like to do. And then the funny thing is to your point, and this is how it happened through work too, because I was doing different types of training and facilitating for teams. And as I do that, it's the funny thing is I do the session and I knew enough about the content, well enough to where I could navigate it and we could go on tangents or whatever. But with every session, I got an even better grasp of it every single time I did it. Yeah. And, so by the time I delivered it 40 times, it was different than the first time.
Right.
As you're teaching it, more stuff's connecting, more stuff's resonating, more experiences are happening that connect to that topic. And before you know it, it's interesting. But okay. So what are you doing for fun currently? Being
a dad.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't think I know what fun is too much anymore. There's not. We just got out of my wife going through nursing school to being a nurse and all that other kind of stuff, and I went from 2 jobs to now just 1 job and juggling schedules. So we're doing family stuff right now. getting used to the idea of we can take vacations, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's primarily just family stuff.
You've been doing date nights?
I try to. Gosh, it'd be so. I'm a brick whenever it comes to romance and stuff like that, you know, because I'm really good at day-to-day stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But like flowers and being sweet,
Yeah.
like I'll do stuff and I'll get stuff, but like, you know, like, hey, just, you know, maybe we go out, and I'm like mission oriented until she's like, hey, stupid, I exist in my entirety, and I'm like, oh yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Dates
So
are a thing,
we do try, but with 3 kids, it's kind of like,
That's why I was curious.
Yeah.
That seems tough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so fun is basically just hanging out with the kids.
Yeah. Video games.
Video games. Okay, what are you playing?
A lot of Rainbow Six. So
Yeah.
much shooter game.
Is it fun?
Yeah, it's a good time. You know?
Like Call of Duty?
Yeah, not so much run and gun. You plan more and stuff, but I'll have friends that I play with. I don't play by myself. It has to be with friends. That way you can just the pinnacle of messing around is with friends, right?
Makes sense.
Because it's like, all right, I could play this serious, or I could 360 no scope it. Let's do it. So yeah,
it's funny.
Yep.
I haven't played games in a while.
That's yeah. I'll maybe once or twice out of the week I'll play for a little bit.
Yeah,
and that's about it.
There you go.
Yep.
Have you played Call of Duty Black Ops?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I played for fun, and I like to equip myself with the boxing gloves.
Yeah, of course. I see that.
That was me.
Yeah.
The funny thing is I did just as good with boxing gloves as I did with a gun. So
makes sense.
I know. So because I remember going over to Buddy's house. This was quite a few years ago, but I remember just being like, "Wait, they have the boxing glove option? Okay, suit me up."
Yep.
And I'm sure I made people so mad because we paid like the one we played on was the best. The one I did awesome on this one, but it was because I don't remember what area it was because I don't have the game, but it was like. It was open. In the middle was just like a bunch of just this abandoned building thing. So you had to go down this corridors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what was funny is I would just sprint through this thing, and as people come around corners, just punch them, just knock them out, and they'd be done. And I know they're watching the replay, being like, "What the heck?"
Throwing the controller. I'm out.
Stupid. Because that was probably the most success I had. It was actually, dude, I actually did way too good that exact round. The rest of the time, open mat, it was stupid. Just running.
You get shot. That's
shot. But that specific location was perfect just to punch people in the face. It was so good. So.
Same. Because you'll choke. You're in the middle of a game and you're like, here they are. And you have a gun and and then they're like,
exactly. So it's either just to run and just
run and
keep
moving.
People.
Yep.
Oh, so good. Okay, so let's see. So I like this. So we covered a lot of topics today. So
yes.
If we were to write a book about you from when you were born to now, what would that story be called?
I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't know what I'm doing. Is that it?
I don't, that one, I was fully stumped on that right there. And I'm like, man, when he asks that question, I'm just going to scream as loud as I can into the mic. About like, God, to really seriously answer that question, I don't know. I think I'd have to go with that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm doing. Is that it?
I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay. And then I also like that quote you said, and I thought that could be fun too. So don't fear it, respect it. I like that a lot too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you like that as much.
I like that. I like that more than you do.
Yeah.
Quantifiably 5% more.
Well, should we make that
Let's do it.
The title?
Yep.
Don't fear it, respect it. I love that.
Yep. No,
although I did like the thought of putting like 5 eyes at the beginning of that though. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But okay.
I think you're right with that one.
Perfect. I like that one. That was good. I mean, that was one thing that when you talked about it, I was like, okay, boom, that feels good. And I feel like it correlates with a lot of what we've been talking about too, which is really nice. So, okay, cool. So then,
wait, what would be the title of your book?
Title of my book?
You're asking all these questions. I want to ask some questions.
So I am going to
wait. There it is. It's Nike. That's the title of your book.
Title of the book, I guess. I guess I could steer that question. So what I was going to do is, since we just did our 10th episode, I was going to do a Q&A, and I was going to take the questions that other guests ask other guests and answer those.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not on the guest list. So let me think. So if I had a story, I know I've thought of this before, but it's been a minute. I'd say I always liked perseverance. I feel like that's always showed up in lots of spaces.
Right.
Just because I mean, I even think about the music I wrote. Like a lot of those songs were all about perseverance too. If you think about a lot of the metal music.
Yeah.
Like crap happens. Now what do you do about it?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, like that. I'd say either that, or I'd say like if I had a latest chapter of the book, I'd say right now it's called like a new evolution. I'd say is like the latest chapter.
Right.
So I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's shifting, and a lot of the old things that I've done for so long have changed over the past couple of years. It's like it's almost like a fresh start, like starting over and seeing what you want to do now. What are you going to evolve to?
Right. Right.
So yeah. So I'd say book, perseverance, latest chapter, a new evolution.
Can I get a little woo woo with you?
Little woo woo.
Woo woo.
Yeah.
Can I do that?
Yeah.
So there's something in I think it's like astrology and all that stuff like that, like reading like zodiac and star signs and stuff like that. Now we're just gonna dive right in.
Dude, I do that all the time, by the way. So this is up my alley. Let's talk about it.
Do you know what a Saturn return is?
No, tell me about it.
Okay, so a Saturn return is like every, I want to say like it usually happens in your 30s, but like there's moments in life that are correlated with when you're born, or just in general, just time, right? It's that time in life, which, you know, take it what you will, because I don't put all my stock into like, you know, is Mercury in retrograde? You know, it's interesting.
It is,
right?
yes.
But I'm not like, you know, yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to become a professional golfer because that's what the stars have aligned, you know?
Yeah.
So there's something referred to as a Saturn return. And it's a moment in life where, at like right around 30 years, where you'll get, I think, either 2 or 3 of them, depending on how long you live, where the things that are working for you will keep working, and the things that you're trying at and not succeeding and aren't meant to do will fall away, right? So Saturn return is... Are we in Jurassic Park? We're not in Jurassic Park, right?
Those are their guineas.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, not velociraptors.
Okay, all right, good. Shoot her! So anyway, to try to be serious again, it's when in life that the things you're meant to do will show themselves, and you're going down that avenue, and the things that aren't working will fall apart and fall away, right? So either you can be on board and accept what you're supposed to be doing, or you can fight fate and swim against the current and sync with who you think you're supposed to be. It's called a Saturn return, because that's when like Saturn will come back around, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, because that's what I'm noticing is doing this podcast. I don't think I've ever felt more like this is like my mission and purpose. Like never felt so sure about something before, which is really interesting.
Yep.
So I feel like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So what sign are you, by the way?
Pisces.
Pisces. Okay.
Yep. That's me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What about you?
Sagittarius.
Okay.
So supposedly Pisces and Sagittarius either really love each other or don't like each other at all.
Sounds about like us.
So,
call you up sometimes. I'm like, hey, fuck you. No.
Hey, they did say they're a good balance though. They balance each other very well, which is interesting. So yeah, I just recently met someone who's a Pisces, so I've been looking into that a little bit, which is really interesting. So yeah,
you already know more about it than I do.
Yeah. So what is your take on that stuff? Do you?
It's super interesting. I mean, it's like to me, it's kind of like a Ouija board. Oh, okay.
So we're still good.
Okay, good. To me, it's kind of like a Ouija board in the sense of like, you know, I don't put like all my stock into it.
Yeah.
But I also like won't crack one open and play one in the middle of a church. You know, like there's just enough to where it's like, just in case. You know what I'm saying? So that's it to me. Where again, like I wouldn't live and die by it. But it is interesting. You know?
I'm very fascinated by it. I think it's the same thing. I think it's maybe our curious nature, right?
Right.
But I don't know, because you mentioned it earlier about like there's a nature and nurture to certain things, and to a certain degree, I'm open to the concept of what if the way the stars are lined up or planets, what if that is a way for our chemical makeup to be? What if it is one entire machine that we just don't know, right? So it's interesting, and it's funny how like. It's funny because I used to be different. I used to be like, that's woo woo. I'm not into that.
Sure.
But then, like I said, I've been getting really, really curious and kind of dropping that ego over the past 5-10 years or whatever. And like, the more I do that, the more I'm like, let's look into this. And the more I read, the more I'm like, okay, that seems spot on.
Yeah.
Okay, what about this? Oh, that seems spot on too.
Right.
So it's the same thing. Like I'm not gonna live and die by it, but at the same time, like I think that. If it's another way to understand myself, how I operate, then that's good to me.
Yeah, it's like for me, it's like the religion question. Like, I know that I don't know, and that's okay.
Exactly.
So
same.
What if?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I like that.
Although I really dislike the whole people talking about life's a simulation. That can go away.
Let's just.
That's so annoying. It's like saying the world's flat or the earth's flat. Get out of here. We're past that already.
There's still people that are all about that too.
Yeah. I thought we already did third grade, but some of us didn't. But whatever.
Watch, this video's gonna get flagged now. It's like flat Earth.
Yeah.
Yes. Dang it, we upset somebody.
Yeah.
No, that's good. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, as far as that goes, so yes, Zodiac, done a lot of stuff on that lately, so it's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. Astrology blows my mind. Yeah. I think the thing is too, is that, and I'm sure you learn this, like the more I know, the more I realize I don't know.
Right.
And the more I'm okay with not knowing.
Exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
It's like, some things it's not my place to know. I'm
exactly.
okay with that.
Yeah. And it's one thing that always interests me is when I think what always bothered me, one of my pet peeves is meeting people that know.
Yeah.
Like,
because you get the feeling that they don't.
You know they don't know. You know, like that you know enough to where like there's no way you possibly know. But when I meet people that are so for sure that they know, it actually bothers me.
Right. Yep.
Because I'm like, okay.
There's one guy that I know for a fact. Now this is going to be another hot take.
Okay.
That was like that. Yep. So assured, and this is the way that it is. And it was about some pretty big topics that are like, some people live by this sort of stuff. And he was also a felon. And I'm like, 2 and 2 putting together, you're about as smart as rocks. I feel good knowing that I can say, hey, listen, I don't know. And that's okay.
Exactly.
Because the guy that says he does know also held someone up at gunpoint at one point. So choose your own adventure here.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, that's good. So now this part of the podcast is just for you to share anything that you want to share. So this is like, anything else that you want to share with the audience. How can people find you if you want people to find you, like social, etc.? Mm-hmm. Is there any business or anything that you want to promote or outside stuff that you're doing? This is kind of that segment if you have anything that you want to share.
Well, I think I'm pretty close to, maybe venturing off and doing my own solar thing.
Okay.
And that stuff's not there yet, but I don't know. I mean, I think with this and with talking about it and getting the gentle nudge towards having more of a presence with solar, because right now I work at Missouri Solar Applications and I like it. I like doing solar and it's a boatload of fun. And I think that I'm going to say I think that it's important, which I do, but that term's kind of weighted. I don't think solar's for everybody. I just am personally fascinated by, solar and electricity and just that kind of stuff in general. But that's just me, so I like that portion. People can't really find me on social because I'm super old and I don't have a Facebook that I've deleted like 15 years ago or something. So they can get a hold of you. Call Ricky.
So just put all my information on there.
Yeah.
Hey, I need to talk to Seth. Okay.
Yeah, like you're the liaison. Aside from that, something that somebody should know is a running joke that we had in Nightmare Nevermore was, for whatever reason, we would always joke about throwing up on our own face.
I forgot about that. Oh my gosh. I was wondering when you got this, that piqued my interest. Okay.
So we would be sitting there joking around. Ricky's like, wouldn't it be funny if like you're playing and stuff, a show, and like you go to like,
it's the visual imagery, and then we would all tease about it. I totally forgot about that.
I've got something on that though.
Do you? Okay, tell me more.
One of my favorite things to do. You can't do it to hardly anybody. You have to be like really solid with this person. But if you can sneeze on somebody and they don't punch you in the throat, that's love forever. I love sneezing on people.
Do you?
There's a guy I worked with he's one of my very best friends and I love him so much. It's Gavin Jones, and I would sneeze on that. We'd be working together and we're outside in the sun, so it would get me to like sneeze whenever you first come out. Walk outside and stuff like that, and then I'd grab his shoulder and like sneeze on his back. Or if I could get his back pocket, I would do that, or like a shirt pocket or something. If you could sneeze in their pocket, everyone hates it. 100%
of course
people hate that, and some people hate it so much more. And I'm working with this group of guys now. I didn't mean to sneeze in this guy's face. It's Isaac, and I love him so very much. But I pushed the line, man. I pissed him off so much because we're sitting like this, and he's driving. And I wanted to aim for like down here, and it was a shotgun. It got everywhere. I'm so kind of sorry. So we're doing our thing, and it's quiet, and I'm just like, and I see him go, and then it just hit him. He just wants to murder in that. You know that seriousness?
Yeah.
That is not funny. And what didn't help at all was a guy in the back. LaRon goes, "Oh, dude, are you okay?" I would have punched him right in the throat. I would have punched him in the face. I'm like, LaRon, you're not helping. He's trying not to punch me right now. I feel kind of bad. I wanted it. I would have sneezed just on his pants, not in his face. But man, I got him right in the face, and he was so mad. Oh, it was so worth it. So I still try to like get a pocket or something like that, maybe sneeze on his back, and it's my favorite thing to do. But what tops that, because it gets better than that, is I'm sitting there with my family, right? I've got all girls, and they're young, you know, and there's my wife sitting across from me, and it's a rectangle, not a circular table. You know, I got a kid here, we got a kid there, we got a kid over here, and we're talking, we're doing our stuff like that, right? And then I just lean back and I go,
sneeze in your face.
I keep looking back and I let it hit me. And my wife gets so pissed off. That's disgusting. I can see it. This just mist of garbage from my mouth just slowly hit me in the face. And then she's trying to make me feel guilty. What do you teach the kids? I'm like, hopefully it ought to be awesome. I'm laughing. I'm like, and she's just like, it's not funny. No one likes it. I highly encourage you to do it. It's the best.
See, I love that you don't take stuff too seriously. That's the best part. I don't either. I think it's silly when people are so serious about stuff. Because then it kind of makes you want to do it more, does it not?
Right. The number one thing I got ever since I was a kid is and I still suffer from this now, I'm too much. Right? Like I'm a hyper guy.
Told that sometimes.
Yeah, where it's like, okay, you took it too far. And that's my favorite one. I used to get told whenever I was living in Los Angeles, Seth, you took it too far. I'm like, nay, it can go further.
We can go it far enough
further than this.
Yes.
You know, and so I get that I'm not for everybody, and sometimes, you know, you kind of have to dial it back. But in those times, whenever something is so just gutturally hilarious to you, I'm gonna do it.
Yep.
And I'm gonna take the ass chewing afterwards because sneezing on my own face was worth it. I said it.
So my thing is, so when you sneeze in your face, did that bring back the memories of that?
Oh, of course it did.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I totally forgot about that. Gosh.
Yeah, there's a little section of whenever somebody throws up now that's just ever so changed forever because of that. And whenever somebody pukes, I'm always like, oh no, you know. And again, with having kids, like, you know, they'll run around or something will happen or they'll get sick, and like puking is guaranteed to happen with kids, you know. And I hate it for them and stuff like that. But there's always in that after moment, after like all the bedlam's kind of relaxed, there's always a part of me that's just like.
Now I know it sucks that you threw up, but have you ever tried throwing up like
this? Yeah, we're like, gotcha. Yeah.
This is going to be the most tuned in part of the podcast. I guarantee it.
I hope so.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so we're coming towards the end here. So what I like to do is I like to end the podcast with basically the guest giving a question to the next guest, asking a question, and then the guest also answering the question from the last guest. So you have a surprise question here from the last guest.
Yes.
So let me see what we got here. Let's see. Okay. If money wasn't an object, what job would you choose?
Shut up.
If money wasn't a thing, yes. What would you do for a job?
Object, what would I do? I would really be. I think I would still. I would still do solar. I would still want to either do like green building, right? Because there was a house that we did, and it was through it was in Columbia, and the dude had like the greenest building in Missouri or whatever else like that. But he built it in such a way that it was, not only did we put solar on it, but he had it to where it was like, being in an urban environment, it was as self-sustaining as it could be. Like, it's not collecting rainwater or anything else like that, but it would try to be so conservative on energy, using stuff like, different building techniques, different types of insulation, and all that other kind of stuff. And all of that has always fascinated me, right?
Yeah.
Having been an electrician, there's something, and this sounds so weird or like just goofy in general, there's something magical about a house being built, right? Because you're walking in on somebody's investment and where they're going to grow up and live and love and have arguments and sort things out and paint and decorate. And, just it's weird, but it's just magical to go in and you just see the skeleton. And it's like, I'm going to do things to this house that are going to be with it for 50 years, 100 years, or whatever else like that, right? Like, you can write goofy stuff on the walls or whatever else like that. But whenever you go to like wire a place, you're seeing different, people that you only get to work with whenever that certain situation happens, Yeah. And again, there's just that feeling of you walk in somewhere and you can smell like cut wood, or you could see like, people digging on stuff. It's just a certain aspect of it that's magical. And I think for me, it goes back to whenever I was a kid and we were building our house at the lake, right?
Yeah.
It was such a pivotal moment for me because it's like, this is ours and it's new and it's this, it's just such an exciting time. And I got to share in that later in life because there's been a handful of houses that I've wired or have put solar on before they, people are living in it and stuff like that. And it's just like, this is awesome, right? So I think I would do that. I think I would like not care about making any sales or anything like that. And I would probably just get every camera imaginable and film myself doing all sorts of solar and stuff like that because it's so much fun. And on top of that, I don't know if I would do music for a living because it's, it's hard. But every once in a great while, I really, really, really get the feeling like I need to be on stage in front of people again, just to be like, me, everybody, look at me, yeah. So I think if money weren't an object, I would just professionally be me.
Yeah.
And just not worry about it. Just pay my house off and be like, what am I doing today? Whatever I want.
You go.
But it would probably be, it would, more often than not, it would probably be solar because it's just, it's cool.
Yeah.
And then on the weekends, probably music.
That's cool.
Yep.
It's funny that you get that feeling too. I still get that feeling all the time.
Yeah.
Music, like it's just like I need to be performing or doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bummer.
It's weird because it feels like it's way egotistical, right? To be like, I just need to show somebody how awesome I am. But man, I think I just swallowed a bug. That's how awesome I am. But no, what I like is it's just that it's not that you're just there to perform and show what you can do, but it's also that shared moment. Agreed. Of like, hey, we're all here in this box and we're sweaty and we're rocking together and it's just awesome, So yeah, again, my thing, whenever I look back to performing live, it's very much so like a drug because once you decide and choose to do it, you've just kind of opened Pandora's box. Either you're going to hate it forever and you're never going to want to do it again, but more often than not, you're going to be like, that sucked. Let's do that every night. Like, I need to do, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Because after we would like play and do all that, I was left with that feeling where it was just like, man, because there were some times I remember doing that YMCA down in the middle of nowhere and like behind closed doors, behind everything. That was such an incredible show. Tony didn't show up.
Yeah, I remember.
Here we go. We made a scarecrow with a jack-o'-lantern Halloween pumpkin head and just dimmed the lights on the drum set. You brought a whole drum set and we set it up and then we put a scarecrow in Tony's place and we played to a drum track, right? And just kept the lights down. Playing live to a drum track is hard because you've got to be on.
Yeah.
I mean, because the track's going to keep going like Milli Vanilli, right? Like it's just going to keep doing its thing. So you've got to be on, and we nailed it, right? But Tony wasn't there, and he was kind of giving us the runaround, right? And then after that, it was 3 hours away because you were down in Hollister at the time, and I had to drive 3 hours with my stuff in a Nissan Maxima. And I was like, man, Tony's not showing up. We're playing at a YMCA. This thing's 3 hours one way. So I was like kind of crabby, And I'm like, man, this just sucks. And then we show up and we put the stuff together. And then we had a sound guy, right?
Yep, we did.
And it was these big, like 20-foot vaulted ceilings, right? Mm-hmm. And the insulation had like paint on it underneath. And we played so loud that the paint shook from the ceiling. And again, like back to listening and like when you do something and you get goosebumps, that during sound check, that first like, whoa, and you felt it, I got goosebumps. And I'm just like, oh, hell yeah.
Me too.
I was so pissed at the beginning, and then at that moment, and then we played it, and there were like 20 people at most. I didn't care. I was there for me. Right?
Yep.
And it was just such a great time. I think I even like co-opted the audience where a friend of mine, it was her birthday. So I called her like on the microphone and we all sang happy birthday, and then we just played and you guys were just like, whatever, and we still did it. But I want to sound like that all the time forever where we go. Like to me, if I could sound like that and then play the horny toad again, in a heartbeat.
Oh my gosh.
Just give me like a couple of months to like get back into it. But that was one of the shows where I was like, this is going to suck. Tony's not here. What are we doing? And then right when we start doing it, it's like, oh, we're going to kill everyone here. This is going to be amazing. And it was.
Dude, it was.
You hang it up at the end, and you're putting your stuff away and you're like, I could do this forever. Yeah, this could be if I have like the right people around me where it's like I support you, you do your thing, I know you're going to be gone, I know it's going to take a lot of time, you're here for me, I'm here for you kind of thing. I could do that forever. I could just hit a stage and be like, woo, like it's a party all the time. So
dude, I felt the exact same way. I remember that too. I remember very distinctly them like sound check, whoa, and just like, oh, yes.
That's a different level of where we were at.
And I think having the drum tracks, because they were polished, they were thundering, man. Yeah. I remember hearing Breaking Down the Walls the first time we played that one with that drum track, because Tony's playing on it, the drum fills and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, dang.
Yeah.
Dude, it was powerful. But I remember how much work that was too. Because when I got the notice, I was like, oh snap, I got to go into my recorder, pull all the drum tracks because we're still going to do the show.
And the best part was with that, you had different clicks to different ones. So we had to remember or have like a little piece of paper that you get 3 clicks on Hero, you get 5 clicks on Alone in His Shadow. And so it would be like, wait.
Because of the
we didn't screw it up at all.
No.
We all held it together, and man, it was amazing.
We nailed it, because I remember what happened is on some of the tracks, like first I think the one that was 3 happened to be just because when we were recording it initially, his drum track, I hit record after he already hit the first hit, so there's only 3. So it's like, hey, just let you guys know there's 3 clicks on this one, and then I think on 1 or 2 of them I had to actually put in like digital like. And then it would get into the real drum track.
Yep. Because it would click a little bit and then it would do that. Yeah. And I mean, again, with performing live it's its own animal. It's organic. You rush the time, you drag the time, you're all there together to make that happen. And it's if you all lock in and it's a feeling, right? Feeling the crowd, feeling each other, you're there to do it, right? So if Tony's going a little fast, or if I'm playing a little fast, or if you're on that ship together, right?
Yeah, we are.
But playing to a click or to pre-recorded drums, you better be on.
Playing it,
because if you're off, you're gonna sound like crap.
So true.
Yep.
What's funny though too is I realized there are 2 things. So one, I remember Above the Clouds being challenging because remember drums don't kick in forever.
Yeah.
So I think we had to have like a click, and then we had to like, I think I had to have like a constant click to where I was like, do, 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 do.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, because then the drums kicked in. I think we could figure it out, but there was that. And then I also realized too, like how in the moment we are sometimes at shows and how fast we play songs.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're at the correct speed because that's how they were. So I remember being like, this seems slow, but actually this is how it's supposed to be.
Yep. Yeah, because you're just so amped up and stuff. You're like, I'm ready to go. Like, you know.
Oh, dude, I remember listening to some of our recordings, playing some of those songs. Like, how in the heck did we play it that fast?
Because we would play it faster.
Because I would remember, and I would know it too. Like the minute, like it would seem normal, and then I remember like playing live when I'm like trying to do like the stand or something. It's like, and I'm like, whoa, this is way too fast. And I gotta sing. What the heck is going on?
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember that. But then and then you listen to playback, like, yeah, we played that fast.
Yeah.
Dude. Hey, we need to play again.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's put that on our list because I think
if I might, if you can get Tony and John, interview them separately, and then have a podcast with all of us.
Yep.
Because Tony and I could fill a podcast alone in just the crap that we did in Los Angeles.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely sure.
Yeah. But on top of that, man, it would be such fun to do that and also to play, because we gotta knock all the dust off all my crap.
No, let's do it. We should do it because it'd be fun. And then because actually Tony, so we have to reschedule Tony. Actually, I was supposed to have Tony's yesterday, so we'll reschedule his and have his sometime in August. And then John said he's down, so so yeah, we'll do the individual ones and then we'll think about that. That sounds good.
I think, again, it's your stuff. Do you know whatever you want to do? But I think we'd be a great time all together. But
I think so.
Tony reached out to me on Thursday, and he's like, "Dude," and I'm like, "Where have you been?" Because like I'll usually message Tony through Signal, right? Because I want to say way back in the day, it was me, Nick, and Matt. We would all back and forth on I think like WhatsApp or whatever. Because Nick was like, "Hey, get this. That way we can have our own little like message thing, right?"
Yep.
And then we switched over to Signal, and then Tony happened to be on Signal, and I was like, "Oh yes." So every once in a while, Tony and I will catch up, and it's usually like months worth of time and all that, but it'll happen eventually. So I was sending him stuff on Signal, and he wasn't getting back to any of it, and like you could check because it'll say, hey, they looked at it or whatever, but it seemed like he was just 100% AFK, right? So I was like, what's... So he texted me, regular text, like a caveman, and I'm like, where you been? And he goes, it kicked me out. I'm just now getting it back. So I just got the feeling, and just out of the blue, I was like, when are you going to do Ricky's podcast? He goes, I was supposed to do it today. And he goes, but we had to reschedule because I had to show up to work. And I'm like, that's dumb. Just call into work. He goes, I would if I could. I'm like, here's what we do. You call in, we podcast together. Beforehand, we just get hammered drunk and just ruin the podcast.
That sounds about right.
We don't tell you. And Tony and I just show up drunk like, what? But it didn't happen, so.
Yeah. That's good.
Here I am, just normal drunk.
Hey, this is good.
Yeah.
Love it.
Rough.
Dude, we should do that though. We should have everybody on at some point. So I've been trying to think about that. So I have obviously the regular individual episodes, but I've been thinking about like having just some one-offs here and there, just like with interesting topics that we have. Like I think so. I had Brittany from school back then. I don't know if you remember Brittany Curran was her name back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had her on the other day, and she was talking about like color psychology. Is like, let's have an episode on color psychology, right? Like just like random stuff like that. So I think that'd be fun to have something like that. Like get everybody together, have just music talk, band talk, whatever. That'd be fun.
I think you're in the exact perfect position for it because you've got like weightlifting in like the community there. You've got fighting in the community there. You've got music in the community there, and all that other kind of stuff like that. I mean, I think you would be able to. Again, it's your stuff. You can do what you want, but. Yeah, having like groups of people or whatever else like that. I mean, it's you got enough interests to pull a crowd.
Yeah,
so do it.
Sweet, we'll do.
We'll do.
Well, what I'll do is I'll buy some more of these mics and see if I can have all four work in one little attachment. We'll see if that works. Then I'm game. Otherwise, I'll just have to figure out another mic situation.
Yeah, get like
we'll make it
or something.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So now, what question do you want to leave the next guest?
If it were to end in a week, if everything were to end in a week, what would be the first thing that you would do? what would be the most important thing that you're putting off, that you're not doing, whatever else like that? If you knew win, lose, or draw in a week, it's lights out, what's the one specific thing that you would either do different, anything like that?
So what would you do with that week given?
Essentially,
okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. Deep question. Okay. Sweet. I'm stoked.
Yeah. Because again, I mean, to me, it seems really like, drastic or, macabre, I guess is the best way to look at it. But like a lot of times how I live is defined by how many people have passed away and what that does, because a funeral, everybody gets together and it's always, I'm so sorry we have to meet like this. Right. Which is true. And it is sad. And a lot of times as the older you get, that's how you do meet, or how you get family together. Like, I hate being together like this, right? Because life's busy and you just keep doing your thing. But it's happened so often that it's, a lot of what I've done has been driven by missed opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And not just with death, but like, again, that's like the final crescendo is, you don't have that time ever again. The mistakes are in place in time forever. The happy moments, you're never going to get them back, and they will shine the further they get into the future because they're just memories, right? But on top of that, what got me to play guitar, even in the first place, is I'm a kid at the time. I think I started whenever I was like 16. And I noticed a lot of people, like a lot of adults, would just be like, man, I wish I kept up with that, And again, I'm not trying to like crap on anybody, because as an adult, I totally get it. Like, I pull out a guitar right now, it's covered in dust. I haven't touched a guitar in a long time, right? But like that and like skateboarding and stuff like that, I was around just the right amount of people who weren't quite adults, but were definitely not like teenagers or kids anymore. And they would always have this like forlorn, like, I wish I kept up with that, kind of thing, where it's like, you can at any time, you can go and do that. Like, just make time, like do it, And again, as a kid, of course, that's like the perfect thing to say, where it's like, of course, I don't have a mortgage or any responsibilities. Just go dedicate hours upon hours to just sitting down and playing a guitar again, But that's one of the biggest things is like, why would you live in such a way where you would be like, I wish I did that, right?
Yeah.
And I've still got that to this day, but I don't try to let it be like, man, I could have been somebody. You know what I'm saying? It's like, even if I'm not well enough equipped, I'm still going to try to take that shot, if I want to.
Yeah.
Again, with us playing music and stuff like that, like I hadn't played metal. I was in guitar lessons learning like theory and playing like blues and jazz and stuff like that. And then there's this like heavy, just, hey, all right, learn this, and then we're going to play live like the minute that you get it down, and it's like, okay, just that right there, like, just take the chance, So it's that to me is it's very much so defined by that, because it's like, maybe you'll make an indention on this world, maybe you won't. Hopefully you'll leave it in a better place than where it was, but in the meantime, get to living, because it's like, do cool stuff. Fortune favors the bold.
Yeah, agreed. And what's really cool about that too is I think that's a really good best practice, is to think about your mortality. Like, it seems like, oh, why would you think about death? At the same time, when you do, it actually is a positive thing, because you think about, well, then you're actually going to do the things you want to do, right?
Yeah, like, I'm not trying to be like emo, like, we're all going to die, but it's just like, this stuff's important. This stuff's like, intentional, and, like, it's special.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's such a good question. And then I think a lot of people too think that inaction is not action, when that's totally false, right? The minute we decide not to do something, then, right, thinking back like, well, I wish I would have done that. So you got to think like the opportunities we decide not to take are going to impact our life just as much as the opportunities we do take.
Right.
So it's something to think about.
Yeah. And that, I mean, for me too, that is born of a lot of me sitting on the sideline, like, I missed a lot of chances to play music or to record or to do whatever else like that, because it's like, what if I screw up or whatever? And then, like, there was eventually a next time where it was like, you remember how you felt when you didn't take that shot and you felt like you missed out? Do it,
Yeah.
So.
Agreed. Yeah. I think some people too, I don't know if some people actually mean it sometimes as well.
Yeah.
You know, because I think people want the outcome, but don't want what it takes to get that outcome, right? I think that's a real thing. Is where people are like, yeah, I would love to be on stage right now, being a musician. It's like, okay, do you know how to play any instruments? Nah, but I think I would really like to do that. Okay,
man, I'm just gonna grab that mic and go, bro.
Well, you're gonna have to. There's gonna be a lot of hours spent, a lot of work, and then too, we also, the thing is too, we don't know what people have gone through either. So some of those people are in the place they're in because of what they went through. It's like, oh well, do you want to lose these people in their family? Do you want to have a drug addiction that you overcome? Do you want to do all this stuff? Yeah, because that's how they got there.
Right.
No. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, because I think people easily want to trade, like, oh, I wish I was there. I should be there. Like, but should you?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Seth, anything else that you want to share?
Not that I can think of. Yes, there's one.
Okay.
I was watching the podcast of your mom talking about the whole schizophrenia thing.
Yeah.
And man, again, immediately, like talking about way earlier, like that you put schizophrenia in the title, like immediately hooked. Like, let's find out what's going on there. Yeah. But the whole story of that, the most impactful thing that I had heard of all that is, you're right. Like, you don't know somebody until you do, right? And that was that kind of moment.
Yeah.
But she had said, I'm learning just now how to let go and like how to do all that sort of stuff like that. Yeah. And so I was just like, damn. Because again, with my story and my stuff like that, there very much so seems in my life like I'm running just as fast as I can to stay ahead of having to feel all of the stuff that is waiting for me the minute that life is just like, now sit down.
Yeah.
Now here's all this, where it's like, because I don't know if you ever do truly forgive yourself unless it's a big moment like that. Yeah. Right. And it's such an odd thing. So I just, man, that hearing all of that for me specifically was just like, whew, okay, I feel like less of a psychopath now because, like having to grow up with that and deal with that. And like, she's, in like older than I am. Right. And just now at this moment is able to be like, I'm learning, I'm learning to forgive and let go is like such a huge thing, where it's like, okay, cool, I'll take that and keep that in my back pocket, So yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one for me.
Yeah. I like that episode. That was a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good topic.
Yeah.
It's cool too to think that it doesn't really matter how old we are. We're always figuring something out, right? Learning something new, letting go of things. And yeah, I know to this day, there's still things, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that I'm not aware of current time that I'm going to be like, dang, man, why was I doing that, 20 years from now or something like that? Like, what was I thinking?
Right.
But,
those are my favorite. You're laying in bed and you just have something happen that reminds you of something that you forgot. You're like, I'm such an idiot. Why would I do that?
Why did I do that?
Sorry, but I'm not going to call you and say as much.
That's awesome. Yep. Well, Seth, it's been awesome having you on the podcast.
Hey, thank you.
So to this T-squared time, this has been the longest podcast that we've had to date.
Yes!
So we got the record for the longest podcast so far. But dude, it's been awesome. So I know we'll do it again for sure. And then, it's been nice to catch up, and it's been fun to catch up in a platform like this where we can ask some good questions and just really get to know each other. It's pretty cool.
Because it's, beforehand, if it's just you and me, we're going to shoot the crap about, like, maybe stoicism, but probably music. And that's going to be about that,
Stoicism.
Yeah, you never push the envelope of, like, tell me about your father,
Exactly. Tell me about exactly.
Yeah, so I thoroughly appreciate it, and thank you.
Cool. Yeah, well, thank you, Seth.
Yep. Until next time.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Bye.